earlier in Texas.
Yeah. Oh no, it's quite early in Texas. And you're excited for Deep Jewels
Of course
next
I am.
month, right? Oh,
It's gonna be great.
that looks like a good show. Poshan Z versus what's her name? Oh, sorry, we're live. Hey everybody, you're watching and listening to the We Are Rising podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin. I'm joined by a very special guest, returning guest, Charles Jewett. Sogokaku. How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. I got my coffee, but that'll get me through our. Well, I should say get through because this isn't Bellator because the Bellator show was
Mhm.
awful. Supervisor 2 was great. Probably you'd agree with that, right?
Oh, 100%. It
Um,
was kind of weird. I was happy that the Rising portion happened after the Bellator portion.
it was a great palate cleanser
Mhm.
to like what Bellator had, and it was really like it was like a tale of two shows almost. Where like first
Not
show.
mhm.
Hmm?
Not to be too critical, but it just seemed like an average Bellator show that could have been happening anywhere. There was no opening ceremony, no like VTR of any kind. Because I was kind of surprised when I watched the Bellator Hawaii show. They just pumped those fighters out there. And it's kind of the same here. It's like, let's get these fights over and done with. No show, no entertainment value. Just get the fights going and move them on.
I think that's also. I think that was also a big. If that's what like when you look at the card on paper, it kind of read just like a Bellator card, but it just happened to be in Japan.
Well,
So it's like,
especially if you didn't include the last minute replacement, I think the only jet fights featuring Japanese fighters would have been the Kana Watanabe fight and the Horiguchi fight, right?
hmm. um, I mean, so was that your first? Was that your first official Bellator show live, or did you see the one and that was in 2019, or did you wait? You went to the one. You went to Super Ryzen one. Wait, no, Bellator X Ryzen one, right?
Yeah, but was that a Bellator show?
Was that did
Oh, I went to
what?
that. I went to the New Year's Eve thing, and I think that
Mhm.
was two shows.
Okay, okay. Um, well,
No, but I mean,
mhm.
um, I just I would just think that if I know that they've been going to Japan more often recently, but the Japanese audience is kind of conditioned to have like this pomp and circumstance to the events, and this just felt kind of bland. Fights aside, I would like a little more production value.
Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, we talked. I've talked enough of the Bellator show, yes, and I really don't want to talk about it. You
Mm,
kind of talked about it on your Let's Talk JMA with
yeah.
Shu. So I mean, but I think overall, you know, presuming if this is Bellator's last show in Japan, this was not the this is not the best show to go out on, probably.
Well, I'll say at least they brought out commentators and stuff. They at least brought out that kind of stuff, which
Oh, that they had live commentary. That's the highest compliment I could give
yeah, yeah.
Bellator and Showtime. Um, before we get into the Super Ryzen 2, though, I think probably the best fight on the Bellator card was probably in the back. Uh,
Was
which
that
was
in the
clever.
back?
Well, it started out
That happened after the Rising show.
but I thought Kleber ran to the back and what was it? Jumping Liu Kang kicked.
Yeah, but that
Um,
was during the Rising portion because
oh, it was.
Suzuki fought Pitbull in the
Oh
Rising
wait,
portion of the
I'm
card.
getting my I'm getting my whole thing mixed up. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So never mind. That was not the worst. That was not the best fight on the card. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Um, what's come out about that whole thing? Anything interesting? Is it just was it just
I
two
will say
guys
that
kind of being assholes?
um it just sounds like the typical if do you remember that one like season of The Ultimate Fighter where Vanderlei Silva just seemed like a crazy person with Chael Sonnen?
Yeah, yeah.
It seemed kind of similar to that. I think the Pitbull brothers even like quoted, like cited Vanderlei Silva in like their thinking process. It just sounded like a bunch of machismo guys being like, I heard you were talking shit about me. No, you were talking about me. And then both sides kind of refused to back down. It's kind of
Uh,
stupid because they claimed that they heard that Kleber was talking bad about them on YouTube. And then they got mad that he jumped up during the Chihiro Suzuki fight. But I mean, Rising brought him out ringside to film his reaction to the fight. And it was a
They always
crazy
do that.
knockout. It was a crazy knockout. What's he supposed to do? Just sit there and make no reaction at all? Like, the Pitbull brothers just need to calm down. I think some of at least my wife and her friends are kind of like more interested in Koike now. Where I think I was actually kind of annoyed by it. Because my whole thought process was, if you want to fight the Pitbull brothers, you had your chance on New Year's Eve and you threw about 4 strikes. So,
Well, were there less strikes thrown in that fight, or the Corey Sanhagen Rob Font fight from this past week? Because I don't know, it might be a toss up.
I just remember that first Koike Pitbull fight was so incredibly boring.
Yeah,
but I have no interest in them like attempting to rebook that in any shape or form. But I did think it was fitting that Koike kicked him, because that is the only strike he ever threw against him the entire fight.
That's true. That's true. But I have a question. Did that get a lot of because if you want to talk about like backstage stuff, like I'm trying to remember who it was.
Well, there was like Rising cameras there. They were clearly filming it.
Okay. Did it get any like outside press? I guess the Gong or any of the other.
I saw Yahoo. People weren't writing about the incident. They were writing more about Pitbull, like went on Twitter to like rant about it. And that got picked up by a couple of publications. But it's not like big news or anything.
I'm surprised because I don't know what I figure that it's such a rare occurrence. I can't remember the last time I heard about a backstage fight in Rizin that I figured that would have been.
It used to happen in Pride like all the time with like a Shogun and Crazy Horse and all those people. Didn't Crazy Horse knock out Vanderlei Silva supposedly backstage?
Yep, I think Wandy's actually admitted it that they've
Hey,
that he got
Crazy Horse can knock you, but he knocked out Philip Kimura. He can knock out anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully maybe we get to get their rematch now that Kimura is full time in Rizin.
Yeah, still waiting for the results of that steroid test. We got to see how he did.
I've heard rumors that the cup melted when he pissed in it.
Is this going to make the famous Jose Aldo piss test where the tester dropped it at the airport?
Oh, oops. I dropped the pee. Oof.
I've done my service to Brazil.
I'm curious to know. I know you were in the press room for Super Rizin 2, but were you able to gauge kind of like what the atmosphere was when Bellator ended and then it became Super Rizin?
I'd say that after the Horiguchi fight, it completely just kind of sucked all joy and excitement out of the venue, because that was probably the only fight that people came to see on the Bellator portion of the card. And with that ending the way it did, which, I mean, I'm glad that Shinryu didn't agree to continue because it would have been awful. But just accidents happen. But just the results of that was just completely drained the entire venue. And afterwards, I kind of went out and I walked around the big like space where they have all the goods and all the food booths and everything. And people seem to be having a good time. There were huge lines. They're buying the goods. I just didn't really hear anybody talking about the Bellator portion. I don't think it made that big of an impact. I think most people were more excited for the Super Rizin show.
I think if people want to hear more about that, they can just hear you and Shu talk about it on your thing. I don't want to steal it from your thunder, but he shed a lot of light on that, on it being particularly, that it's a doctor's call, and also the referee's call as well, and also time as well, because it's I think Shinryu said he couldn't see, but he definitely would have said he wanted to continue, but based on the, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, you poked in the eye 20 seconds into a fight. That's in a 5-round fight. That's gonna be big, right?
Well, it's Bellator things, so it's to be unfortunately expected.
Jay Wolf blaming Dana White, saying that there was like a curse put on the event or something.
Yeah, possible. I don't know, but would you? I think I suggested that they just rebrand the flyweight title for Rizin and just do that fight in Rizin. Like, I don't know, New Year's Eve or something.
Probably has a longer staying power at this point.
But also just because if Rizin has all these flyweights that fights that they're having, it's clear that they want to do something flyweight, and it just makes sense. I mean, when let's presume that Bellator is not going to be around after 300, or at least in its current state, just give it to Rizin, rebrand Rizin flyweight. There you go. Ta-da! I don't know. I don't know why. I don't think you can. I don't think you should rebook it for Bellator. Doesn't make sense. I don't know.
Especially since Bellator seemed it's kind of strange in the press conference. Scott Coker was like really non-committal to rebooking it. He was like, "Oh, we'll rebook it if they're interested." Right? What?
He said like not in this quarter or something.
He said like not in this quarter. So he's like, which seems strange to me. I would think that if a title fight ended in a no contest, top priority would be to book that title match as soon as possible, not 4 months down the road, which tells me that the title match was probably geared entirely towards this Japan card, and they didn't really care about the featherweight division that much.
Yeah, no, and just Bellator things. This is just Bellator being Bellator. But let's talk Super Rizin 2, sir.
Yes.
Mikaru Vugar. I think we predicted this exactly how we thought it was going to go. I'll take that back. We knew that this was going to be the outcome, but I don't think I didn't expect it to be like almost like as a Mortal Kombat flawless victory.
Well, I expected Mikaru to I expected him to like land a punch or something to maybe stuff the first takedown, to not seed the takedown immediately, get mounted immediately, get elbowed with like the equivalent of
that was a nasty elbow, by the way.
Yeah,
did you see his elbow
equivalent of I mean, I think the last elbow like that was like a Crow Cop versus Gonzaga 2. I mean, they were like elbow haymakers. He only landed like 2 or 3 of them and left a giant mark on Mikaru's face. And you're a jiu-jitsu guy. If the guy's in full mount and he's winding up to throw those giant elbows, doesn't that kind of give you a chance to like reposition or kind of squirm out of there a little bit?
It could, but also Vugar has excellent grappling. Someone like that knows how to keep his balance, knows how to maintain that position. I don't think that Mikaru is somebody who's like, he's not a grappler.
Well, I guess that's my real question is, in your experience, just so people know, I mean, you go to jiu-jitsu, you're a jiu-jitsu guy.
Kind of.
It looked like Mikaru had no idea what to do in that position.
Yeah, no, he was and also the way that he got choked was
did you hear him say that he didn't think he could get choked in that position?
Vugar?
No, Mikaru.
Oh.
That's why he didn't defend it. He's like, I didn't think you get choked in that position.
He's not wrong. Ideally, you would just have like the hooks or the body lock in, but there is a way to do it. Actually, if you watch when you see the video with Yachi and Shinya Aoki, when Yachi was training for the second Satoshi fight, Aoki's teaching him a choke, kind of similar to that, but like I guess a rear naked without the hooks, without the body lock.
Yeah, I guess I've watched too many Olynyk fights because I now think that you can get choked from any possible position.
Yeah, well, he's an exception because he's a heavyweight, and I kind of like, okay, a guy's big giant forearm going to your throat. Yeah, that's going to be different than Vugar. But yeah, that's the thing is that, and the funny thing was that Vugar didn't even like pull him back to like put up the hooks in, put the body lock in. He didn't do anything. He just it was weird because Mika was kind of like on his knees and it was
against the ropes.
Yeah.
But I mean, if some guy has his forearm under your chin, I'd be like, even if I don't think he could get this, I should probably try to get his forearm out from this is a bad position to be in.
In fact, actually, probably if Mikuru knew, probably would have been smart if Mikuru actually probably would have actually got his back fully taken, because then you can then work the position out that way. But he seemed more confused by
Yeah.
just being like, it was like he had never like like you said, like he didn't think he'd be choked in there. I mean, you can, but but it's very rare. It's very rare because it's very easy to just turn around. I
Yeah.
don't know. He brought in the Pitbull brothers for this camp. Apparently, I mean, sounds like
Well,
he should have brought in jujitsu guys for this camp. Not,
Shu is doubting the truthfulness of that claim because
really.
the Pitbull brothers were already scheduled to come to Japan,
Mm,
and possibly Mikuru just offered them a place to train, maybe pay them a little bit of money, but the flights and the hotels would have all been subsidized by Rizin.
mm,
Mm.
I see. I
Because
mean,
it also makes no sense. If you're going to be fighting Karamov, why the hell would you, if you're picking, are you flying in the Pitbull brothers? They are not like world-class wrestlers. If anything, I'd be like, I mean, who would you fly? Like, it's hard to fly someone in, but go train.
mm,
There's other people in Dagestan and
well,
Azerbaijan that you could bring over to train
mm,
with.
um, striking wise, I mean, the Pitbull brothers are not a bad choice to have like as striking coaches, but that's not who you want against
No,
who you
but
want against
if,
Vugar.
if
Sorry.
you're bringing in sparring partners,
Yeah.
I've always thought that you're trying to bring someone in that can mirror the movements of the guy you're fighting
Yeah.
to kind
You
of
know what?
practice.
You know what sucks actually? I would have said, if he was there, I would have had like AJ McKee, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Someone who knows like really good defensive wrestling. So I would say in Japan, he's a great judo and wrestler. Grant Bogdanov would have been a great
Well,
person.
that's the
Yeah.
weird thing about this is, I mean, Japanese MMA training has its fair share of problems, but
Yes.
Japan has great wrestling programs. I mean, he should have He should be able to find wrestlers to train with. I mean, just get some guys from Brave Gym over there. I mean, Takada would have been a better training partner for this than the Pitbull brothers.
Yeah,
Bring
just anybody.
bring Saito. I guess Saito's difficult because they might fight each other in the future, but
No,
someone
but
like that.
he's had I think he's brought over people who he's fought or
Well,
something
then,
like
if
that.
that's a possibility, bring Saito over because not only can Saito grapple, but he's also fought and beat Karamov.
Um, I don't. Do you think that he was physically unprepared for this fight, or do you think that he was just mentally broken
I
when
think
this
he got beaten in every possible way, physically, mentally, mindset, technique. I mean, this position right here, do a little more, please, to get out of that.
um it's so oh, actually he does have a hook in. He has one hook in.
He has a single hook in. What do you call that? Like quarter. What do they call that in
No,
Tenth
it's
Planet?
not even. It's actually not even fully in when you look at it. It's not even fully in.
It's in enough because he has. That's the only foot that's on the ground. The other foot was up in the air, so he planted all his weight.
Mm-hmm. President
Yeah.
of Azerbaijan. It's a yeah. I mean, and that's always been. I think grappling is clearly his deficient thing. I mean, he's never really had to really
Yeah.
use it up until now because he's never really faced high level opponents
Well,
that use.
they've also picked his opponents to give him not favorable matchups, but people that don't have giant advantages against him because
Yeah.
I mean they never really placed Kai against a wrestler either,
Mm-hmm.
and
But I always.
you got to think, how often is Mikuru realistically training, and how focused is he on it? Because this isn't his moneymaker. His moneymaker is his YouTube.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's it. I don't know. I don't know if it's Connor level where like really he doesn't care about fun anymore. But I don't know. Is it? Do you think Miku's at that point where is it clear that maybe his heart's not in fun anymore? It's just now this breaking down YouTube stuff.
I don't think his heart's in it because just look at the training. I think he was probably training a couple hours a day, whereas Karamov went to Florida, was training at Fight Cliff with Musayev, Inoue, and some is Sasaki down there? Some other Japanese fighter. And he was down there training hard, training every day with this on his mind. And Mikuru's like going on TV. Mikuru's doing his YouTube show. Mikuru's taking pictures of Sakura, helping him become an influencer. I just don't think Mikuru's 100% focused on fighting.
This well, he said I know that is his latest. What was it? The YouTube video where he his post fight YouTube video. He didn't say that he was quitting. He said he was going to be back, and thank you for support and all that. So, do you think he's going to come back?
Oh, he'll come back. I think he's not. I think he realizes to some degree his YouTube fame requires him to be like an active fighter, at least in this point, because so much of his personality is branded around the fact that he's a fighter.
So so it's not. So he has to stick with it to some degree if he wants. If you want,
I think so. To maintain his credibility.
Okay. Who would you say he fights next?
Well, not a grappler. I know that Shu said that Ren doesn't want it because Mikuru's coming off a loss and they want to make a big deal about it.
Well, they both lost. They both lost in recent fights. It would make more sense more now than before.
But I think they want to do it where they're both coming off wins so they can kind of build it up more.
Every time they've done that, see, this is why I don't like when we want this to be all right because they want
never works out.
It never works out. Yeah.
Who do you put Mikuru against? Chihiro Suzuki.
No, Chihiro. Nah.
Chihiro's stock is never going to be higher coming off of that Pitbull win.
I was going to say Chihiro versus Vugar potentially for Baku.
No, you don't do that to him. You put Chihiro in there with Mikuru because Chihiro's not going to wrestle. And if Mikuru beats him, he's back on top of the world.
Well, you don't know that.
If Suzuki beats him, he's an even bigger star than he already is.
You don't know that. You look at that. You look at that video. You look at how Mikuru has lost, and it's kind of like, oh, you fight him like this. This is how you win. I'm Chihiro. I'm like, yeah, I'll wrestle this guy because he's not going to expect it, and if he does, he's not going to be prepared.
Yeah, it's just not that. He's already fought. I mean, the Japanese division is just not that deep, is it? It's like Mikuru's already fought a lot of people in the division.
I saw some suggestions for Saito, Mikuru 3.
No.
No. Let's see. Oh, we got a lot of comments coming in.
Wasn't the Mikuru Saito 2 fight incredibly boring?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Smile
Bomb says, I'm a Kai enjoyer, but I'll admit that Kai and Mikuru are both purposely matched against people they have decent chances to win. I would say less Kai, more Mikuru in that. I definitely feel like Kai's taken much harder fights.
Most recent fight aside, I would agree that Kai has faced much stiffer competition than Mikuru.
And he's looked better against that stiffer competition.
Yeah. In his last fight, Kai looked very improved. In the past, he's very much relied almost exclusively on his punch. And it seemed like against Motoya, he had a game plan. He was throwing strikes he doesn't normally throw. So Kai is still evolving as a fighter, where if anything, Mikuru seems to be almost digressing as a fighter.
Now the only thing that Kai's got to stop is got to beat is his own body, apparently. As Jay Wolf would say, Kai Glassakura.
You also got to put some of that on Rizin, just riding him too hard.
Oh, Anna, our friend Anna has a topic. Did you see the flower given by a lady with small bikini to Karamov? Do you know what you're talking about?
Yeah, Anna, let me know if I'm wrong. People were kind of laughing because Karamov is obviously a Muslim, and he was given a bottle of champagne and a porn star gave him a flower. I think the girl in the bikini was a porn star, but Anna can confirm if I'm right or not. So I'm sure he loved being surrounded by round girls a porn star with a flower and being given a bottle of champagne. Some Japanese fans were actually being like, maybe you guys should be like more sensitive to what Karamov would like to have in the ring. But
I don't think Vugar knew that was a porn star.
I may be wrong. I know that the girl that was doing the commentary for the fight is like a former like idol / adult video star. And I think that somebody told me in the press room that the girl in the bikini was also an AV star, but I may be wrong.
Was it the same girl who was commentating Hiroya?
Yeah, the Hiroya Ito fight.
Okay.
She might have some breaking down connection because that sounds like it would make sense.
It sounds like someone who would be on a breaking down show. Actually, curious to know, was the social media guy from Rizin that we met, was he there last time when you were there?
What are you talking about?
Remember the guy that we were talking to when we were at 482?
Oh, he was there. I sat next to him again, and he was the one that told me all that the girl was an AV star.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because I had no idea who sometimes they have celebrities and I have no idea who they are.
Our friend, the Polish Hammer, Daniel D. Zabecki, says, in my opinion, Mikuru versus Red is possible for New Year's Eve. You disagree, though, CJ?
Well, that's possible, but Shu seemed to shoot it down. But I know Ren's kind of a crazy guy. I think Mikuru still wants to be the champion, so probably needs to find someone with a bigger name. Not a bigger name, but someone who's higher up in the rankings. You can't get a bigger name than Ren at the moment, but someone higher up in the rankings that he can beat. Or they might do what they did. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, what did Anna say?
Oh, Anna said, I feel that it was a thoughtless act of Rizin, given that Karamov is a Muslim, and in addition to that, Rizin invited Azerbaijani government officials. 95% of the population seems to be Muslim and Azerbaijani. It's probably actually higher than that. It might be like 99%.
No, I was laughing about it, and when it happened, because it seemed so incredibly awkward. I'm like, why are you putting a porn star, liquor, and round girls around a guy who seems like a devout Muslim? It seems kind of crazy. And I know she's not alone because, like I said, I saw some Japanese people on social media saying it was pretty insensitive to do something like that.
I don't know. I'm not. I think that's just how they do things. And it's kind of like, well, here's the thing. So then if he didn't win, if Vugar didn't win, so you have to prepare for both. I don't know. I think that's a little bit, that's how they do it. The porn star, maybe you don't have.
That's what I was about to say. I think the round girls were fine.
Yeah.
But I think having the adult video star and the very skimpy bikini come up right next to him, maybe don't do that.
Okay. Falling Star has a question for you, CJ. How did Japan react to Naoya Inoue beating down of Stephen Fulton? There was one boxing YouTube commentary who says that Inoue is very close to being the master of the whole sport of boxing.
Oh, it was nuts. It was absolutely crazy. The fight was streamed for free on like a new Docomo app, so everyone could watch it. It was absolutely nuts. I was just talking about it. A lady came over to my house, and I think Shohei Ohtani is clearly the biggest athlete in Japan. And that's just because of the amount of exposure he has. He plays so many more baseball games than Inoue has boxing matches a year. But when Inoue has a fight, it kind of like surges up to almost that same level, but then it drops back down again because it's not in the media. But I think the two biggest athletes in Japan right now are number one, Ohtani, number two, Inoue.
Who would be number three?
I think we're really falling off. They do like to claim Naomi Osaka when she's winning.
Okay. One day, maybe Inoue versus Tenshin. Who knows? Maybe in Japan one day.
I think they're owned, but aren't they part of the same group?
That hasn't stopped Ali from putting his fights against each other.
I watched that fight, and in the back of my head, I don't want to be a hater, but I was having this thought that I don't think Tenshin can reach this level of boxing. Because Inoue seems kind of like a once-in-a-generation type talent.
You're right.
Yeah. Be interesting to see how well Tenshin does, though. But
Vugar. I saw someone in the chat someone said, oh, yes, Code May Day says Vugar versus Saito in Azerbaijan. Who do you think should be his for the Baku show, November 4th? Who do you think Karamov should defend against?
Perfect matchup. Gives him a chance to get revenge in his home turf as the new champion. I think it's a good fight.
But
Plus, Saito's the only guy in the division right now who I think realistically gives him a good fight.
But Vugar has a chance to lose that, though. He does have a chance to lose that potentially. I mean,
well, it wouldn't be an MMA promotion if you didn't match Gustafsson against Rumble Johnson in his home country. So
that's true. That's true. But I figured that, since they're going to be doing their Azerbaijani debut, I figured they give him a little bit of an easier opponent or someone who they,
no,
I figured they would,
because they also have to sell the fight to the Japanese crowd. So you got to put somebody good in there. You got to put Saito or somebody in there.
Will you be making the way out to Baku?
No, it's super expensive. Turns out there's not a lot of direct flights from Baku from Tokyo.
Oh, I wonder why. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was thinking of flying into Tehran and driving over, but I was told that's a bad idea. So,
what do you think about that? That Rise is actually doing a show in Baku.
That's great. I mean, they're going to a market that no one else really goes to. They have two really good Azerbaijani fighters, and they seem to have the support of the government. I think it's a good move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and they clearly wanted Hawaii to be the first international show, but I'm kind of it kind of reminds me of like those old boxing Ali matches where you would go to those countries where you get like really favorable tax treatment and a lot of favors from the government. So maybe Rising's doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, good on them for finding a market that nobody else has really going into.
This could be Rising's Rumble in the Jungle or Thrilla in Manila.
Well, one that fight that was not a Rumble in the Jungle was Juan Archuleta versus Hiromasa Ogikubo. CJ, I know you were falling asleep during Bellator. Were you falling asleep during this fight?
No, they're interviewing a fighter, so I was paying more attention to the interview in the press room. But I kind of felt bad for Archuleta because he seemed like he really wanted to fight Kai Asakura. He made it clear many times after the press conference that he seemed kind of upset that he wasn't fighting Kai. And I do think he kind of got screwed a little bit when it's, oh, you're going to be facing a guy who's a striker with really good punching. And then they replaced his opponent with almost the complete opposite type of fighter. So,
I mean,
different.
You had an opponent last minute. I mean, structurally, I think it makes sense. Hiromasa was one of the last people to beat Kai. Yeah,
it makes a lot of his prep work probably useless, though.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're, it's. I kind of figured that with the replacement, I think it was just a much easier fight for Archuleta than Kai would have been. I think Kai would have actually put up a fight.
It was an easier fight because Archuleta's better. Everything Ogikubo is good at is Archuleta's strength that he's better at.
But I mean,
Ogikubo had almost no chance of winning this fight.
So one of the things that stuck out for me with this was that even that it seemed like, I don't know what the stats were. I don't have the stats in front of me, but Archuleta seemingly was almost not throwing strikes deliberately. He was just holding down Ogikubo. I know that some people thought that, like, oh, you could argue that Ogikubo won because he was clearly delivering more damage and significant strikes.
No, as we've talked about before, the way that damage seems to be scored in Rising is you like really have to hurt the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that never happened. Juan Archuleta was always in control. If anything, he was just playing it incredibly safe because he didn't prepare for Ogikubo. So maybe he didn't know what all he's capable of and just took the cleanest, safest route to victory.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's very aware that he's like 35 or 36 years old, right?
Archuleta?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah. So, and listening to him talk, he seems like a smart guy. I think he realizes this is kind of like his last big run in the sport. And he wasn't willing to lose to Ogikubo and throw that all in the toilet. He wants the big money fight with Kai. He wants to get a fan base in Japan and have one last go as the Rising champion. So I think you saw that in his performance.
We have a question from Daniel Dizabecki. should have asked this before, but good he brings up now. What do you think about that? ABC was discussing Rizin rule set. Athletic commission.
It means nothing to me because it's just okay. Rising went to the Colorado Athletic Commission and did a presentation on Rising rules. Is there going to be a vote? Is something happening? Unless I see some follow through, it's meaningless to me. I mean, it reminds me of like their press conference where they announced Stream Pass, or they had, the Hawaii press conference. Rising's done a lot of press conferences where nothing happened afterwards. So,
well, that's a Japanese thing. That's a very much a Japanese thing, is to have a press conference. Well, first of all, to have a press conference to announce a press conference.
Yeah.
And then have a press conference to, I don't know, just announce things, and then these things never materialize at all.
Babalu Jack and I have been burned so many times that unless I see something like actually happening, I'll believe it then. And I remember, do you remember when they were trying to change the rule about whether or not if you had your hand on the ground, you were considered a grounded fighter?
Yes.
And
that was a big thing in New York as well. If you remember during the Chris Weidman, was it Gegard Mousasi? Was it Gegard Mousasi? Where, because
I just know that Chris Weidman essentially lost to every fight in New York because the MMA gods hate him.
There was a weird thing because he was putting his hand, I think his knee was on it was weird. Yeah. That's the other thing, is that like different commissions are like, oh, it's the knee on the ground. Others will say you have to have a hand on the ground. Some commissions are like anything besides your feet. Yes.
And all I know is that the commissions in the United States can't even agree on that rule.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are like quote unquote unified rules, but last time I checked, they weren't adopted by all of the athletic commissions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that still the case? I haven't watched the UFC in a long time, but last time I was watching it, it was like depending on what state you were in, what was a grounded opponent changed.
No, that's true. That's very true. New York, it's different. I don't even know what's in New York. I don't know what's in Nevada. I don't know what's in Texas, because everyone is different.
So if the athletic commissions can't agree on that, I think there's a very small chance that you're going to let them agree to soccer kicks.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing as well, is that I think in Colorado they're not even bringing up the soccer kicks. Was not even approved. It was just knees. It was
presentation.
Knees.
They had soccer kick finishes in the presentation.
Oh, they did. Okay. Oh, yes, they did. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, but I think, but
those numbers also seemed like suspicious to me.
Suspicious? Oh no, of course not.
What one grounded knee finish in Rising's history? I can think of 3 off the top of my head. Like, it's just like, this is, he also threw a punch, so it's not technically a grounded knee finish. I don't know what they're doing, but it just seemed kind of strange to me. If anything, I would be trying to say that they do lead to more finishes, and that's why these rules are more interesting.
Mm-hmm. But I think that I saw in the slides, they said that it will lessen stalling. I think that's the most important thing.
It evens the playing field between wrestlers and strikers.
Which is what actually I would have preferred the Bellator show, if it was on the Rise rules, because then you have Magomedov, who is obviously a wrestler by his name, taking on Sabatel, and you just want. I want to see what. That's the thing, is that we really haven't seen a lot of these Dagestani Russian wrestlers be kind of in that environment where.
You remember the Rena Miyu Yamamoto's second fight where she blasted her with that knee?
Yes.
Now that would be legal stateside, but I feel like a lot of fighters would be way more willing to throw knees like that. Yes. If they could do it to a guy whose knees were on the ground during a double leg. If you could evolve your technique to sprawl and then throw a knee, I think you'd see the wrestlers hesitating a bit more to spam double leg takedowns.
Actually, we'll get into the next fight, but
I have a question. One Championship also had their event in Colorado, and that's because Colorado kind of acquiesced to some of their rule, like their weigh-in stuff, right?
Yeah.
they allowed the hydration and the weird weigh-ins that they do.
Yes, weigh-ins.
So Colorado's also where Invicta went for those tournaments, as Jay Wolf loves to bring up. And Colorado is, like, I think, one of the first commissions to do the open scoring.
Well, I thought Kansas did open scoring.
It's possible. But I know Colorado does it as well, I think.
Okay.
And so I may be wrong about the open scoring, but it makes sense to me that Rising went to Colorado to do this, because Colorado seems to be the athletic commission that's willing to, like, listen to this kind of stuff and make changes.
Yeah. Well,
but soccer kicks and 12-6 elbows seems like a crazy ask for me.
I think the other thing, and this is why it's going to sound weird. It's going to sound gatekeepy, but I don't care. Problem is, if you okay soccer kicks in the for athletic, if the athletic commissions allow them, you kind of lose the specialty of Rizin in a way, because they're the only major promotion that does them. If it's okay to do them in United States MMA matches, you kind of lose a little bit of a hook with Rizin, I think. Is that do you agree with that?
No, because I don't. Despite what Jay Wolf says, I don't think it's the rule set that attracts.
Let's not pick on Jay Wolf. Let's not pick on poor Jay Wolf.
I'm just saying I'm going to be the counterpoint. Jay Wolf's main claim is that people are attracted to Rising because of the rule set, and I think most Japanese fans aren't even aware that the rules in Japan and the US are different. I think what attracts people to Rising is the production value, the storytelling, and the presentation. They make a big deal of it. There's, like, entertainment value. There's giant entrances. They have really well-produced VTRs explaining who the fighters are, why you should be rooting for this fighter, why you should be rooting for that fighter. That's why Rising's popular, in my opinion.
I see. Anyway, well, they're going. Oh yes, for Juan Archuleta, you think obviously they'll do him versus Kai, maybe New Year's Eve?
Oh yeah, that's the fight to do. I think Kai's injury is not that bad. Kai said he'd be able to return by New Year's Eve. That's the fight to do. My question is, if PFL buys Bellator, what the hell is Archuleta going to do with the Rising title?
Well, it sounds like that he's more. He hasn't really been talking about Bellator a lot, or did he say he's still a Bellator fighter?
At the press conference, a member of the press confirmed that he's still technically under Bellator contract. They asked him,
okay,
so his contract is with Bellator. Now, I have heard some rumors that, like, as part of the title fight, maybe there's, like, a provision in there that he has to be allowed to fight for Rising now. But you are correct in that, in his response, Archuleta's made it very clear in his mind he's a Rising fighter now.
Code Mayday says that Kai said he would return by fall for a tune-up. Let's well, you know,
no,
just like with
I don't need another chance for him to break his hand. Let's
wait till he's actually in the cage or the ring, you know.
Yeah, let's put Kai in a back to tank and just let him heal up until New Year's Eve.
Code Mayday also says, would you talk about Bellator if you were a part of it? I think he's referring to Juan Archuleta.
No, I wouldn't.
That's true. Folly Star has actually, we'll get into it when we talk about the next fight. But Hiramasu Okubo, you think we're starting to see a downswing of him? This is I believe his back-to-back loss, right? Second.
It's hard to say that because he's looked like he's on the verge of going downward for, like, the past 10 years, and then he'll have some performance that turns it around. So it's hard to say.
The only problem I have with him is that you know how he's going to fight. Like, I think, like, 100% of the time. He doesn't really
you'd say that about so many Japanese fighters, though.
No, but with him, I mean, first of all, he hasn't had a finish in, God, how long? Probably.
Well, that's not his style. That's not his style,
but he has to be matched up against somebody who, like, I'm trying to think, who's going to force him to almost fight beyond his
so what you're saying,
like a Kim or.
So what you're saying is he's like Clay Guida in the sense that if he's doing what he wants to, the fight is very boring. He needs an opponent that is going to make it an action fight and challenge them.
like Solchu Kim,
Mhm.
Ishiwatari.
I know. Is Kim back? Kim's back in Road FC now, right?
Yeah. I think he's fighting for the. Is he fighting for a title or he's
I think
doing
so.
something coming
He's
up?
doing something big over there. And dude, Kim is such a fun fighter. I wish Rising would have held on to him. He would have been a great addition to the roster.
Oh, well, listen, whatever he's done with whenever he's done with whatever and Road,
Yeah.
hopefully he can come back. But I mean, what do you think? What do you think? Horiguchi versus Ogikuba 4?
Well, I mean,
No?
Horiguchi's got to fight Shinyu now, and I'm not 100% convinced that Horiguchi wins that fight.
Mm.
I don't want to see Horiguchi. I mean, he's beaten him
Oh,
3 times.
holy shit. Daniel Duzabeki said that Kim is fighting. Listen to this name, CJ. This is a name from the past. Jae-hoon Moon. Remember him?
Was that
That was the guy that so he was the guy that Kai beat in Road. Then they brought him back for Yaranoka. And then
Yes.
Kai decisioned him
Okay.
to get that win back. And then
Okay.
Jae-hoon Moon fought Anthony Burchak, I think in the alternates for their first bantamweight tournament.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean, that's cool. I'm glad to see Road FC's back up and kicking. I always liked them as a promotion.
They're still not,
No.
I'm glad that they're better than they were,
Yeah.
but they still have a long way. Listen, Black Combat is still number one.
Oh yeah. Well, I
in my
mean,
opinion,
Road FC lost their big sponsorship back in the day, so they've never really recovered from that.
and they used to send me press releases in English. They used to have a very
Well, that's back when Lee worked for them and she was on top of her game.
Mm-hmm. The good old days of Road FC. We
Yep.
actually when we get the following starts question, he says Seika Izawa has a John Jones IQ for grappling and wrestling. It's a shame Rizin don't have weight classes as stacked as light heavyweight, so her recognition about this talent will always be undervalued. And actually, let's get into that fight. Seika Izawa, Claire Lopez. I was completely, I think, I don't know. Were you surprised by just how this fight went?
No, I'll say that in the preview show, when Jay Chris said that he thought Claire Lopez could grapple with Seika Izawa, I thought that was kind of a crazy comment. But my thought was, I kind of agreed with Claire Lopez in the sense that she's clearly a better striker than Izawa, and she has some pretty good power in her punches. So I thought she might be able to keep Izawa off of her a little bit and hurt her with some strikes, kind of like what Park's strategy was. But Izawa was having none of that. And once the grappling started, you could kind of tell how good Izawa was, just the way she did that takedown. She kind of went for the takedown and rolled into it, if you remember correctly.
Yes.
And had like an inside cradle position afterwards. And you're just like, Lopez looked like kind of lost in that position. And I know that Izawa loves to go for guillotine chokes in her fights.
Mm-hmm.
And once she started putting that half Nelson, I just kind of sensed the end was coming. I didn't see like a ninja choke coming, obviously, but it was a very cool finish. But yeah, once the grappling started, you could just see the difference in skill level. And I will say, I interviewed Izawa before the fight, and she was incredibly confident going into this fight. And she didn't seem like she was worried about Claire at all. She said she had watched all her fights. So I think she knew the level of grappling she was going against, and that if she got it down to the ground, it wasn't going to take long.
I just thought that that Claire was going to be so much stronger in the feet, and that's where she was going to try to keep the fight. And
that's true, but I know this isn't what you mean, but physical power wise, I think Izawa is deceptively strong. I think she has like that grappling strength, like really strong pulling muscles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Lopez might have been surprised by how strong she ended up being once they actually clenched against the ropes.
On Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I was I got someone tweeted it or X'd me a question about Seiki Izawa. I'll look up in a second, but the exact question was, can she be considered like a John Jones level type of fighter based on her dominance? What do you think about that, CJ? Would you put her on on that level? Also, she got nominated for Best Female Fighter by MMA Fighting
Yeah.
Awards. Very rare for a Japanese fighter for
Yeah.
that to happen.
The MMA
Prize-
awards do hate the Japanese MMA scene. That is very true.
Mhm.
That's kind of okay. They want to know if Seika Izawa can be considered to have a John Jones level IQ when it comes to grappling.
I feel bad. Let me
I
get to
assume-
oh, here it is. Do you think this is from Alberto Esquivel? And he wants to know, or he asked, do you think with enough time and experience that Seiki Izawa has the potential to become the female John Jones? Feels like it's only a matter of time before she gets that UFC deal and going up in weight for maybe 2 weight classes.
Having spoke to Izawa several times, the first time I spoke to her 2 years ago, she did mention that she wants to go abroad and fight in the UFC. And having spoken to her before this fight, that is no longer a goal of hers. I think she's not interested in the UFC. I think she said something to the effect of she's seen how big the girls are in the UFC, and she kind of realizes that she could never match their physicality. So I think she's content to stay at atomweight and super atomweight. So unfortunately, she doesn't want to go to the UFC, but when I did speak to her, she was more than open to the idea of going to like an Invicta FC or going to Combat Global. Anybody that has an atomweight division, she is interested in going there. And I mean, she's a graduate student. She went to a very prestigious graduate school, so she's a very smart girl. And I think she just realizes that she's best at atom, because she said she cuts 0 weight for her strawweight fights.
Yeah, well, I said I contend that every top 15 fighter that's in strawweight UFC beats her handedly. I
don't know about that. I think once you get out of the top 10, the last 5 might be pretty garbage. But
even garbage by strawweight standards, I think they're just much bigger and more well-rounded than her.
That's the issue with her is always going to be she can't go to strawweight. I mean, I know she's the deep jewel strawweight champion, but that's different. If she goes
I should clarify. That's what I mean. That strawweight deep jewels is different than UFC deep jewels, and that's why
I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
if she fights like, I could see her beating a fighter like Angela Hill, kind of like a one-dimensional. Because I know that Miki Matono looked like she was doing fine against her on the Abima series, but it would be a struggle, and she's just so good at atom weight. That's where she wants to stay.
Babu Jack said,
I will say the John Jones comparison is interesting, because if you're doing the John Jones comparison, John Jones' kind of like breakout moment was the way he destroyed Shogun, and Izawa kind of had that destruction moment against Hamasaki. So I mean, she is definitely. I remember watching her compete in the Deep Jewels grappling tournament, where it was like the tag team. And watching Izawa submit everybody with ease, each person with a different submission, it is very clear that Izawa is a very unique grappling talent. And that's probably because she comes from a judo and a wrestling background.
Babu Jack says, real miracle was Izawa didn't cry.
Yeah. I was very happy to see that, because, man, her cry is ugly. She had an ugly cry.
I think the longer the fights, and the longer the fight goes on, I think when she gets a quick win, she doesn't cry. But I think when it's a harder fought fight, that's when she cries. I think I figured it out at this point.
I'll also say the reason that she wouldn't do well in the evidence that she would do well in the UFC is the Siwoo Park fights. Park is an extremely physically gifted, strong atomweight who is a striker, and she gave Izawa crazy problems in both of their fights.
Babu Jack also says she definitely needs the pro wrestling style manager. Definitely
could be her husband. Who knows? I mean, she's had a crazy year this year. She got married, opened a gym, graduated from school, and has done all sorts of stuff. She's like making a documentary now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was like a Beema documentary, or was it self-produced or something?
I think it's one of those like crowdfunding, self-produced kind of things.
Oh, gotcha. What's the name of her gym, by the way? I forgot. What's the name of her gym? I saw it on her Instagram.
It's Roy's gym.
Roy, that's ROY, not ROID. Just
ROI, yes.
Nobody misinterprets it.
No one's ever going to accuse her of being on steroids.
Kobe Mayday says, bro compared Izawa and John Jones because they both drop people after chokes. Well, here's the thing. John Jones
like the Machida fight?
John Jones deliberately dropped Lyoto Machida.
Yeah.
I think in the case of Izawa and Lopez, well, first of all, the referee was late to that tap.
Yeah.
And then when she
She
let
also just let her go. She didn't like sling her to the floor or anything.
No, like John Jones, if you want, go back and watch John Jones Machida. He deliberately dropped Machida.
Yeah.
And that's when I started really hating John Jones, because that's a real dick move to do that. To like drop a guy who's already unconscious.
Chael Sonnen was about 2 minutes away from being the champion.
Oh, exactly. But I think also the comparison between John Jones, I can't say that because also the level of competition that John Jones faced, I think is
insane.
Yes. Like, yeah, I mean, the best people that Izawa beat are Hamazaki twice, finished the first time, second time decision. Who else?
Izawa's most impressive wins are her Hamasaki and Motono wins. Mm-hmm. The Brazilian girl, I feel like kind of ended up being a bust. That was kind of a weird, not a very competitive fight.
Well, yeah. Well, also even the park fight the second time, you can make an argument that she lost as well. And this and it also wasn't an impressive win. Actually, I would say neither of the park wins were impressive.
Neither of the park fights were impressive. And they both kind of have like asterisk next to them.
Obviously the fights,
That's not to take away from her. I think the second park fight, Izawa had some like crazy pressure on her to finish it quickly. Yeah. Because she was just doing stuff that didn't seem very smart, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think, so I know CJ, we talked about this. I think, obviously the fight, I guess you can make the fight with Reina for New Year's Eve if she's okay. I don't know what her recovery time is with that leg, with the knee injury.
They're not going to do that because as much as you hate to hear it, they're going to want Reina to come off a win going into that fight. That's and true. Seiko wants to fight Miya Yamamoto on New Year's Eve.
Oh, I totally forgot that. Yeah.
Miya Yamamoto looks like she's back training again. Dude, for her age, Miya Yamamoto is jacked. She's like a six-pack. It's ridiculous. But I know she wants to fight again before that. And I don't see Rising Azerbaijan having a lot of women on the card. So kind of think Izawa's next fight is going to be on like a deep jewels card, if I had to guess. And they'll probably bring in like a girl from Korea or someone for her to fight, or Thailand.
But big question. When will we get Oshima versus Izawa?
It's interesting.
Or why not?
It's interesting because the problem is they're both deep jewels fighters that seem to be doing really well, bringing deep jewels all sorts of attention outside of deep jewels. And I don't think deep jewels wants to ruin that party yet. So Oshima's fighting for the Black Combat title. She's hinted that she has aspirations to go abroad in 2014. So, I'd love to see that fight because Oshima would be naturally the smaller fighter in that fight. There'd be a size difference. But Oshima came from a judo background that specializes in the ground fighting, not like the throws. So I think she actually might have a decent chance in the grappling against Oshima and against Izawa. But Izawa's grappling is just so ridiculous. It'd be difficult to say.
You bring up a good point that they're both kind of on hot streaks, but also you don't, if that hot streak is disrupted with with a loss or something, especially listen, if it had Oshima lost against Salt, I don't think you can even count that against her. I think even more so, I think Oshima's even on a hot streak now that she beats Salt.
I would say that I think I see what you're saying. And that Oshima might be on the hotter streak because she's beating people out of her weight class, which makes it almost more impressive. But Izawa's last performance was just a flawless victory. I mean, she did to Lopez what Vugar did to Mikaru.
Hmm. I mean, and do you think is it also possibly that Deep would rather have that fight on their card, and
Well, so Izawa would rather do it on a deep card.
is this a join the Corsi thing where it's like, oh no, I'm not gonna be the B side or
No, I think Izawa is managed by Deep. That's a very important consideration when talking about her. Is she's managed by Deep, and Oshima is also not managed by Deep, but very closely involved with Deep. So I think if Deep is going to do that card, they want to do it on a Deep show.
Mm-hmm. I'd rather Rizin, but listen, if that's what it takes for the fight to happen, it's got that's got to be how it's done. Anna says,
I actually wouldn't be surprised if they don't end up fighting, because if Oshima starts going abroad more, I could see them kind of being like passing ships in the night, just pass each other.
Anna says, Shigeru Saiki has said in YouTube program that Izawa runs out opponents. Did you mean runs out of opponents?
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean,
actually,
Deep is doing admirable work trying to rebuild their strawweight division, but none of those girls are ready for Izawa yet.
Do you see Izawa potentially going to microweight, or is that way too small of a weight class for her?
Well, it's absolutely too small for her.
Okay. Falling Star has a question.
That would be asking her to get to like, is it microweight like 97 pounds?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be, yeah.
Falling Star has a question for you, CJ. I'm curious, have you ever met Shingo? If you have, how do you feel he is as a person and a soon-to-be promoter? I don't know about soon-to-be promoter.
I have met Shingo, and he seems like a very busy person.
I can attest to that as well, that he's a very busy person. Soon-to-be promoter, who knows? You know, maybe Bara's influencer arc is going to take off, and he'll no longer need to be a promoter in Rizin, and he hands it off to Shingo. Who knows?
I've also met Hafid, and Hafid is also a very nice person. So
I've yet to meet Hafid.
Hafid does like a lot of work for Shingo with like the press releases and such.
Code Mayday says Seika versus Saori would be the biggest fight in Deep Jewel's history. Would you agree with that, CJ?
Deep Jewel's history, yes, it would be the biggest fight in Deep Jewel's history. It may not be if you combine it with Jewels, it may not be the biggest fight, but if you're doing like the Deep Jewels era, it'd be the biggest fight.
Do you think that if they were to do that fight, it could be actually on a Deep Impact, Deep Number show?
Oh, 100%. Deep Saudi is a Deep champion, as well as a Deep Jewels champion.
Actually, let's not forget about Claire Lopez. What do you think about Claire Lopez next?
Bring her back one more time. See how she does. See if she bounces back. I would bring her back. I think the original opponent for her in this fight was supposed to be Kana Asakura, and because Seika Izawa was looking for a fight, they booked this instead. I would bring her back for the Kana Asakura fight, and if she wins, keep bringing her back. If she loses, let her go back to Combat Global.
And also, if anybody from Combat Global is watching this, please hire J Wolf as your promoter and marketer, because God only knows you guys are not doing anything.
Keep up the good work. I want to see Chiharu Sawada back in Combat Global fighting for the title.
Is there any news on that on them ever doing like another similar type of card?
I don't know about that.
Bring those people back.
Sawada got announced for because now that Shuto has like the Colors event series.
Yes.
Sawada got announced for I think their November show.
Yes.
And people always ask me who could beat Izawa, and I'm not going to say Sawada. I'm going to point at the Shuto Atomweight champion is the Shuto Super Atomweight champion is Ayaka Watanabe, who is a judoka with knockout power, who isn't ready yet, but after a couple fights, she'd be an interesting opponent for Izawa.
I see. Anna says she would like to see Claire again in Rizin.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see her fight Kana Asakura.
And I don't have a graphic for it because this fight was announced 3 days before the actual fight, before the show.
The best fight.
The best fights, yeah. But upset of the year, knockout of the year, Chihiro over I think Patricio. I'm not so sure. I don't even know if Shihiro knows which Pitbull brother he knocked out because he doesn't know.
Didn't he say that he prepared by watching the wrong one fight?
Yes, apparently he apparently was watching Patricky and said, "I'm pretty well." Here's the thing: they fight very similarly,
Yeah,
So
I was
it's
about to
not
say
like,
probably it wouldn't be like you're watching a completely different fighter.
mhm. Babu Jack says Oshima Izawa at Deep Dream Impact 2023,
New
and
Pier
then
Hall, baby.
WMMA scene. Hello again, sir. Says Kana needs to hurry up and fight again if she still wants to retire at 25. I don't think that's
Well,
gonna happen.
I think she was supposed to be on this Super Rising show, but Seika Izawa, what is the leapfrogger, so to speak.
But I know CJ, you told me that was it Ota who was giving the press, who was like talking to the press, and then the knockout happened. Everybody just kind of stopped to like.
Yeah, Ota was talking, and I think I was the only one paying attention because most of the media assumed that Pitbull was going to be Pitbull and Suzuki was about to die. And when the knockout happened, I couldn't help it. It was made a movement. Then everybody shifted their gaze and was watching it. Ota got up from his seat, went over and watched the replay 3 or 4 times, and then said he kind of wished he had gotten a knockout like that. And it was just absolutely nuts. The stadium went nuts. The Super Arena went nuts. People were at first shocked. They couldn't believe it. Everybody went nuts. It was clearly the biggest moment of the event, in my opinion. Suzuki's kind of crazy, right? Because Suzuki, I always felt like he was brought into Rising to lose to Yushi. And then to lose to Ren Hitamoto. And then to lose to Imanari. And he just keeps winning. So hats off to Suzuki. He's killing it.
Well,
he's
remember
probably had the best current streak in Rising of anybody in the past year or two.
Well, remember his first fight was against Shoji, and he lost that. Got blitzed in that fight.
Yeah, no. But that fight is very revealing because Suzuki very much is, as he showed in this fight, willing to get knocked out to knock somebody out.
And it's interesting that, and then his whole arc in Rise has been strange. He has he has that thing, and then he has the kind of doesn't have a lot of exciting fights, since then he's kind of a little bit, he's kind of just middle of the road, kind of there. He has the fight of Ren, beats Ren. Probably that was his most. I see what you're saying, fight.
But I'll say I'll disagree and say the fights were kind of exciting because it wasn't the result you were expecting. When he rocked Ren. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Which kind of blew my mind. And then his Hagiwara performance. I mean, yeah, Suzuki's doing good.
I don't know. So how do you think this fight came about? Because I know they announced it on 3 days' notice, but
I think I heard that Suzuki was preparing to fight somebody else. And I can't remember.
I think on the podcast, yeah, didn't Shu mention that? Was it Oka?
It might have been that. Suzuki was preparing to fight, but because of all of the mix-ups and the fact that I think the Pitbulls were in Japan training, it somehow got brought up that maybe the Pitbull brothers should fight here as well. Maybe he wanted to fight. Maybe Pitbull wanted to fight. I don't know why he accepted it. Maybe it was his idea to take part. I know that my wife said she read that the Pitbulls normally have refused to fight on the same day.
Oh, was that kind of like a bad luck thing?
Well, I think they just kind of said that it was hard for them to focus. I think they.
Oh, that's true. That's true. In the comments that someone left on the Bellator recap yesterday, Abraham Khan left a comment saying, "Let's go! I cashed a big plus 425 ticket on Suzuki to beat Pitbull." So someone's happy that
yeah, that would have paid off very nicely.
I think the last time I remember a reaction like that, I wasn't in the arena obviously, but that type of reaction was when on Rizin 11 when I was there, because it was when Gomi knocked out Gillard.
The crowd went absolutely nuts for that. I was there for that as well. Crowd went insane. But that's just because they love Gomi.
And Suzuki trains under Gomi, or I know he has.
I think they're just kind of friends because Gomi was there side sitting watching the fight, spoke to him before the fight, and then spoke to him afterwards.
And it's actually funny. He kind of fought like Gomi in this fight, like an old school
Oh,
Gomi.
very aggressive, throwing looping haymakers, completely off balance. It was
And if
great.
don't forget, he did take a punch from he took a I
He
think
took
it
a
was an
punch from him
uppercut.
too.
Yeah.
Hey, this was the Suzuki I wanted to see against Koike.
Yeah. And this is the type of Suzuki I think that can defeat Koike if they ever rematch with each other.
If the past is anything, Koike has been very hittable in the beginning, in the early parts of fights.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of wanted to see if Suzuki could bum rush him, because I knew if it went to the ground, it was going to be over, which is what happened.
But also, I thought you have to make Suzuki, you have to make Koike afraid. Like that's what Patricio
get his respect about as quick as possible.
But yeah, without
I would like to from the break a little bit and say that Pitbull went up a weight division, took this fight on extremely late notice. So I would like to give him some props for taking the bout and not overblow Suzuki's win too much, but it still was crazy.
Well, here I'm not gonna the whole going up a weight class thing. I'm not gonna give that too much of a reason because he's fought a lightweight before. He has, I think. Now I can't remember. Was he the one who knocked out Chandler, or was that the other the other Pitbull at this point? I don't know. I've
always assumed that he was the better Pitbull.
Mm-hmm. I think this is only the second time he's been finished, if I remember correctly. Someone in the chat, please. I
think he has another TKO loss on his record to like an injury. Yeah, this is the only time he's ever been knocked out.
Okay. And all the other
that punch landed straight on the jaw. That punch would have finished anybody.
Oh yeah. But
it was absolutely nuts. I don't think we'll see a bigger upset in Rising for a long time. That was crazy. Because you were going back to Rising 11. I was thinking, I haven't seen a reaction like that since Gionotsu knocked out Aoki or Minimo Man knocked out Sokuju. Like there's because the assumption, you have to remember this, the assumption is that the other guy was going to destroy them.
Yeah.
And then they just completely flatlined him.
Mm-hmm.
Because even in the Gomi fight, I feel like Gillard has also got this image of kind of being a shot fighter.
Yeah.
So it was crazy, but I don't think it had like the same Gomi's got no chance to win this vibe to it.
I think I know in the Discord we had some people that thought that Patricio really wasn't the favorite, but if you just go by MMA,
that's crazy. Longevity, to say that he wasn't the favorite is an insane comment to make. He's the current Bellator featherweight champion. He's never been knocked out, and he's just the caliber of opponents he's faced over his career is miles ahead of Suzuki. Yeah,
well, that's the other thing, and also he's fought. I would say better opponents, and also just has fought longer. And you just if I show this, if you ask one of your friends CJ who doesn't watch MMA or who doesn't know Patricio or Chihiro, and you show them the records and you said pick which one, pick who you think would likely win if they fought each other. I would not believe that any of them would have said Chihiro.
Even if you basic MMA math and you're like, oh, Suzuki's coming off of a loss of Koike, who destroyed him, who got destroyed by Pitbull on New Year's Eve. He didn't get finished, but it was very dominant because Koike was so scared of him, he refused to do anything.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, this is definitely, one of the top MMA upsets. I
was probably, even days after the event, I was still riding high off that. That's the type of win that reminds you why MMA can become a popular sport. Also,
I'll say this: it's one of the great things about Japanese MMA that they literally made a fight on 3 days' notice, and I don't know what the reason. Well, like you said, Chihiro had an opponent, but this would first of all that fight was never announced. So whether it was
his opponent supposed to be Kubo?
Oh, maybe it was Kubo.
Kubo was forced off the Hokkaido card because his opponent got injured. I may be wrong. Yeah.
I thought Kubo got injured, and then they subbed in. No, Kubo was on the card. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right because that fight was awful. So I was like, wait, that fight happened. it's that's also why I like Japanese MMA, because they just announced. Remember, so this was like a weird, just like double card together. You had the injuries and you had all that. But I think the announcements that they made, with what happened, made it like it made the card more interesting.
Yeah, it made it way more interesting. I heard some. Were there rumors of this in English? I saw some Japanese fans theorizing that Bellator's like budget is running out, and that's why they
Bellator
kind of
have a
like
budget.
slapped together this card with not a lot of fights on it in a different country where Rising took control of all the production.
Well, that was the other thing as well. The sound was weird. Well, Lenny Hart's microphone, it sounded there was a weird echo to it, and some were theorizing that maybe because that was Showtime or something. There was like a.
I remember I was in the press room ahead of it, and I can remember the Bellator officials were like complaining that the sound cables weren't working for their audio. So they might have been having issues with the sound cables.
Okay. Actually, I want to ask as well. Floating cage, all that stuff. What do you think of the literal squared circle? I loved it. I liked it. I
thought the floating cage thing was stupid, but I thought that the giant circular platform the ring was on was awesome, because that would have prevented Pitbull from falling out in the Musayev fight.
Well, because I think they should adopt that permanently.
Yeah, me too. I think it'd be really unique. It'd be cool, and I thought it was awesome.
Balboo Jack says crowd erupted after being bored to sleep by a Bellator fight. Oh, was this? This is he's talking about Kyoji Caldwell. Some things never change, he says. No, yeah. Listen, I mean, what does this do for Suzuki's style? Well, can you tell? Like, I know you used to track like the you track like the Google Trends and all that stuff. Have you noticed anything in terms of Suzuki's name like trending upward or something like that?
It definitely had like it peaked during that performance, obviously, but it's nothing compared to like the big stars. But if they play it right and build off of this and give him a big fight, like a Mikuru fight or something after this, they could definitely cement it. He seems to be getting more charismatic and more comfortable on the mic. And I've always said for Japanese MMA to be popular, they need a Japanese fighter that wins. And he seems to be the only one doing it at that division.
I've noticed that when he does, I notice he comes across as more passionate when he yells. Because whenever he I got amazed that adrenaline like rush, but like whenever when he does the kind of like the press conference stuff where he's never interesting. He sounds but like after the fight, when they hand the mic, he's kind of like yelling and just all that stuff.
Even then, his brother's also coming off that crazy knockout in Hokkaido.
Oh, yes.
That flying knee. So it's been a good year for the Suzuki brothers.
It's been a good name if you have the last name Suzuki.
Hiroaki Suzuki did have a good fight as well. So I mean,
like we were talked about yesterday in the Bellator recap, and like for Suzuki next, Jay Wolf made a good case, and I do agree with him that if you wanted to do him versus Patricio for the title down the line, I think that's fair. I know you don't give a shit about Bellator, and that's fair.
No, and why ruin it? Why have him go to Bellator and get dominated by Pitbull? Like, sorry, Pitbull, you lost. Suzuki beat you. What is this like? To me, this is the end of Rocky 1. There's not going to be no rematch. Let him ride this till he dies.
I think. Babu Jack says swap Ushiku with Suzuki. I would have no problem with that. But that'll be second time they fought. So.
Ushiku and Saito to me are the most boring fighters of all time. Like, if you're going to put Suzuki in for any time one of them is supposed to fight, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, do you think? I mean, like, I think probably is he the most? Would you say he's the most exciting fighter in Rizin now?
Most exciting?
Yeah,
that's difficult to say off the top of my head.
If they put his name when they announced that he's going to be on a card without even saying an opponent, do you think?
No, because he has the opportunity to do stuff like the Koike fight. It just kind of depends which Suzuki shows up.
Mhm.
Now, I will say he does always have the option to knock somebody out,
Mhm.
which to me is the great equalizer, as Teddy Atlas puts it.
Um, so we were also talking. There was the guys on the Bellator Zone show. Good friends of mine, Santiago. Say that they would rather see Patricio versus Jeremy Kennedy, but I assume you have no interest in that.
I'm gonna blow your mind. I don't even know who Jeremy Kennedy is.
um, I don't know what else to say.
If you think I know anything about Bellator, except, I mean, Toby Yamada looked pretty good last time I checked. Thought he was looking
It,
good. He had a pretty
it,
impressive win over against Jorge Masvidal, who I think
you,
Masvidal might also have a future ahead of him.
do you think you should go one day to a seafood restaurant, see if they have Bellator on the menu? Ask
Well,
for
I mean,
Bellator.
the last time I followed Bellator, I think Megumi Fuji was coming off of a win over Carlos Esparza. So, yeah.
Way back, way back.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
all right.
exaggerating. I know what these Bellator fighters are.
Uh, well, we talked a little bit about it, but also kind of was it not really last minute, but had to be a sub in. Kira being the sacrificial lamb to Tofik. I'll say this: he definitely did put up a bigger fight than I thought he would.
I will
Kira.
say, I'm gonna say that both Akita and Mikuru got kind of dominated, but Akita went out like a warrior. There was always that thought in the back of your head, like if one of these crazy looping haymakers by Akita actually lands, he
Mhm.
might actually knock Musayev out.
Yeah.
And Akita went for it. He put on an entertaining performance. He tried to bring the fight to Musayev. I mean, it looks like he landed some punches, and Musayev even commented after the fight that he was one of the more physically strong fighters he's ever faced.
Mhm.
But watching the fight, the height difference was kind of funny. And I think that ended up playing a big factor in his demise.
Well, I mean, Tofik. Listen, I don't know if did you see his last fight against Shabili in Bellator? Never
Oh,
mind, you
the
didn't. You did.
broken rib? Is that where he broke the rib?
Yeah, I don't think it was it a broken rib or
It
it
was a
was an
body. It
injured
was the
rib.
body kick finish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he looked like
Oh, I'm
utter
sorry. I don't watch Bellator. No, I did not
like
see this fight.
he looked like shit in that fight. Tofik did, and it was like a night and day difference between the one that the guy. This is like the old Tofik that was
See,
like.
this is
Mhm.
why I'm still kind of confused because we get these performances by Musayev where he looks like a god. Then you get these performances where he looks all right. And you
Oh
kind of get the same thing with Karamov.
yeah.
Because Karamov's also not looked that good in some fights. So kind of interesting to
Hmm.
see what happens. I'm still kind of on the fence about how good they are.
Hmm. Well, I theory about the Bellator thing, and that's because Bellator, as far as I know, does not give their fighters finishing bonuses. At least I've never been told that they have, or at least Rizin gives finishing bonuses to their fighters, and that's they make reference to it in the Rizin Confessions. Yuki Matoya always talks about it. Have you heard
I don't
about
think
that?
so.
Hmm?
I've never.
Well,
I don't think I've ever
when he
heard
did
of
the
win
right,
bonuses. I never
no,
heard
no,
of
the
that type of
finishing
contract.
bonuses, finishing
Oh, finishing
bonuses.
bonuses.
Because
Um,
when he did
I've
when
only,
and
the
the
only
rising
place I've ever heard of that in Japan, I've only heard about that with Rise Kickboxing, and that's the only place I've ever heard of it in Japan is in the Rise Kickboxing. I've never heard about it in Japanese MMA. I don't think the promotions generally have that much money to be throwing around to be doing finishing bonuses.
because I know that the rising confessions where Matoya beat Ota. He when he got backstage he said like, damn it, I'm not gonna get my finishing bonus now.
Well, that may be true.
So
I mean, a lot of the fighters probably have their own contracts, their own agreements. So there's a
I
lot more freedom. I bet because I imagine the UFC and Bellator has a uniform contract for 99% of their fighters, whereas Rising probably a lot of
well,
negotiation is open.
just because most of the time it seems like fighters in Ryzen are going for a finish, it seems like that I assumed, or at least it seemed like that there was some sort of finishing bonus given,
That's
as
possible,
opposed to
but
Bellator, where it seems like sometimes Bellator, like the fighters are deliberately not going for a finish.
You have to look at the scoring difference in Rising. If you get close to finishing your opponent, you're almost guaranteed to win the fight on the judges' scorecards.
That's true. Yeah.
That's 50 points. So
Yeah. The other thing is also, that's just my theory. And that's, that's something I would have loved to find out more if there's something like that. But going back to the fight, yeah, I would have, I still would like to see Tofik Lee's Gustavo, which was the original fight. Maybe
yeah,
they do that
that'd be
for
great.
Azerbaijan.
But,
That'd be a great fight for Azerbaijan. I think that's the
dude,
type of,
that's the fight I want to see in Japan, though.
I know for
'Cause
selfish reasons. I know for selfish
I
reasons.
almost
Yeah.
predict that because of the costs involved, I imagine the Azerbaijan show is going to have a lot of local fighters on it.
Do you think that they're gonna you think it's just gonna be like Japanese fighter versus Azerbaijan? You think that's how they're gonna do it?
Oh, I think maybe the main fights will have Japanese fighters involved, but I bet a lot of the undercard is like Azerbaijani versus like local fighters.
You think they'll do
Would just be-
Azerbaijani versus Azerbaijani?
Or no, but like Russian or
Gotcha.
like Eastern Europe, because it'd be so expensive to fly a bunch of Japanese fighters out there with their teams.
Well, here's the thing. Well, if this is, I'm assuming that the Azerbaijani government is being involved in this financially, whether they're like either subsidizing it entirely. We're seeing.
I don't think they're subsidizing it, but I bet Rising is getting like a massive tax break to do it there, where maybe they don't have to pay taxes on the money they make from it.
Falling Star has a question. He says, if PFL buys Bellator and never works with Rizin, what will the final pair of Bellator fighters you like to see in Rizin? If PFL does work with Rizin, who is the first PFL fighter you want to see in Rizin? I don't think you watch PFL, CJ, so you can't really ask that. You can't answer.
Yeah, PFL is only broadcast on DAZN, and I don't have DAZN. I'm aware of PFL. I know what goes on there, but two Bellator fighters that I'd like to see fight in Rising before it's closed.
Yeah, if it closes, let's say. Oh, and Bob Blue Jack says, in Deep Kick, they have a fight bonus, bags of oatmeal. I don't know if he's joking or if that's
no, he's not joking. He's not joking because there's currently a Deep Jewels t-shirt contest, and the winner gets like a year's supply of rice. But yeah, so they love those kinds of prizes. But Bellator fighters, I do want to see Ren Nakai versus Tana Watanabe, so give me that. I know I'm being cheap and just taking a Japanese fighter back. Give me that.
That's the only exciting fight I think for Khan at this point. I don't care about Liz Carmouche. Yeah. I don't care about anything else. That's really what it should be.
And then give me AJ McKee, because he was one of the few Bellator fighters that I felt tried to put on an exciting fight against Satoshi. And it was a lot of fun. So I like AJ McKee a lot. I'd like to see him in Rising.
I will say.
Plus, I think Rising allows him to express his individuality more than a Western promotion would.
I'm going to be an asshole and kind of cheat. I'm going to say Tofik and Kyoji.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Kana and Kyoji and just take the two Japanese fighters back.
Oh, no, no. Kana, she could go back to Deep Jewels and crush pans. What was it? Bauer is saying it's going to be saying international Rizin roster. That's what Komede says.
I think so too. I think it's going to be a bunch of Azerbaijani fighters. I wouldn't be surprised if every fight involved an Azerbaijani fighter.
Actually, so since I do kind of watch PFL, well, actually, I watch PFL quite a lot because I'm their biggest fan. So in terms of a fighter in PFL to Rizin, easy enough. Francis Ngannou. Easy as that.
Yeah.
If you want somebody who fought in PFL, I'll say Yamato Nishikawa. Put him in featherweights. Is
it cheating to say give me Ray Cepho? Do a Ray Cepho versus Mark Hunt, the rematch?
Why not? Fucking do that. I'd be fine with that. Ichi, good friend Ichi, who's also in the Discord, says Rizin should come to Thailand next. I can't pronounce that stadium, but that stadium's name. The other one that's not Lumpini, but the other one is holding all the fights that should be happening in Rizin anyway. Koda, Buakaw, Keto, which Buakaw versus Keto apparently was announced. So I guess Keto has a death wish
Yeah.
for some reason. I don't know why. But if well, that's the thing. I think you brought up a good point, Charlie. I didn't really think about it. If this fight is Azerbaijan, I have no doubt that the Azerbaijan is doing it with the expectation, or at least contractually, that there's going to be either a certain number or all fights involving Azerbaijani fighters.
Just economically, they're going to save a fortune if they put a bunch of and it's smart for Rizin, because if they discover some new Azerbaijani talent, bring him over to the main show.
But Komede brings up the point I was trying to think before, but I couldn't articulate it. He says, I would be surprised if Rizin isn't getting a site fee from the Azerbaijani government. It is the same way that Saudi Arabia, WWE, UFC, UAE won Qatar. Aliyev is my favorite dictator now. So that's the thing as well. If the government's entire, that whole thing called sports washing is subsidizing it, as Azerbaijan was like, oh, UAE's doing this, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all these other
Chechnya.
Chechnya. They're all doing this stuff. Why don't we get into it? And then, as it just so happens that maybe Tofik and Vugar, told.
Well, it's smart because that video got so much circulation. Wasn't that the video of Musayev returning with the championship?
Yeah,
at the airport.
Yeah,
and I mean, you're probably right, because I think the Philippines did the same thing for the Thrilla Manila.
Yeah.
I think the Rumble in the Jungle also received a bunch of government kickbacks.
Yeah.
And a lot of times governments do this because it helps legitimize them on a global stage. They have a big sporting event there.
Listen, I mean, I don't know what the expectation of flyovers from Japan will be for Baku.
It's a long flight, and it's an expensive flight. I don't think they're expecting a lot of people.
I don't even know what the visa requirement. I know I actually looked it up because I was curious, but I would have to get a visa as a U.S. citizen.
Japan notoriously has the strongest passport in the world, or at least they used to. So if any country can get in with that one, it's Japan. And I think, did someone say the venue seats 9,000 people?
Oh, I didn't even look up the venue. I wouldn't even. It's no. I mean, I'm curious to know what they're going to do for ticket sales, what they're going to do the stream. Oh, I'm also curious, I don't know what the time difference is as well for Japan and Azerbaijan. So how that whole thing's going to work with a Bima or.
I wouldn't be surprised if the fight was broadcast for free in Japan.
Yes, we'll probably get it in fight, hopefully.
Yeah.
So just curious, Akira, would you like to see Akira back? Or
absolutely
back to Pancras to I don't know, do whatever he does in Pancras.
Absolutely bring him back.
Lightweight champion.
He didn't win, but he made it. He did his best, put on an exciting performance. He's got kind of an interesting storyline going with the leaving Gomi and going to Ishotani. So I am all about it. Bring him back. Give him another shot.
You think we'll see Tofik on this card, on this Baku card? He has to be. It can't be.
Vugar to me is 100% locked for that event.
Yes.
Musayev has to be on that card though.
But so that's why I more than likely believe Bellator is not operating or is going to be doing anything past 300, because I don't know. It's Rizin is 100% sure that they're doing this show in Baku. They're going to have him on. So that means Bellator can use him. I'm assuming Bellator was going to have him back for one more fight this year.
Not the loss, though. Maybe Bellator and Rizin do seem to have a good relationship. And they probably understand that it's to their benefit, too, to let Musayev fight in Azerbaijan, because it built Bellator's exposure.
Code Mayday says that venue will be filled no matter what, even if it has to be like WCW Collision in North Korea, which that's a great Vice. That was one of the great Dark Side of the Ring Vice episodes.
Was that Ric Flair that was part of that show?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
A lot of interesting stories came out of that.
Not being allowed to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of trying to leave, that's what Kenta Takizawa tried to do in the Shinobu Ota fight. I did not expect the fight to end that way.
I'm going to say that Takizawa's reaction to this fight, where he looked like dumbfounded that it was stopped. All I could think was what did you expect? I think Ota actually hurt him with one of the punches, first off.
Yeah.
And Ota was unloading on him in the corner, and Takizawa was doing nothing. It looked like he was trying to get out of the ring.
I thought he was trying to get it purposely restarted. He thought that maybe putting his head outside the ring would maybe like the referees would come in and restart.
He did that, I think, 2 or 3 times before that.
Mhm.
And I think the Rising refs were like, essentially, you're trying to escape the ring. We're stopping the fight.
Well, that was it. Remember Takizawa and Matoya? That's exactly how that fight ended as well. It was the same exact thing.
But you can't turn your back to your opponent and like try to crawl out of the ropes. Plus, Ota was hitting him with big punches. I think the ref had no choice but to stop it. He wasn't intelligently defending himself.
Did you see the women's fight from a few weeks ago? Who was it that was like ran, like literally ran?
Oh yeah,
away?
she literally is like, wasn't that in UFC?
Yes, that was in UFC.
She literally ran away from her opponent to the other side of the octagon. I saw that.
But I think this, this is, the ring is also, I think good for this because I think if you do something like that, it's kind of almost like a forfeit. It's like a TKO in a way.
I think it was a forfeit because, not to cut you off, but I mean, you have to intelligently defend yourself. And no combat system is turning your back to your opponent and like running into the corner and just eating punches considered intelligently defending yourself.
Yeah.
Turns out training with a bunch of children in your own gym isn't the best preparation for an Olympic wrestler.
You did say that he has his own gym. He trained at his own gym. That's usually not a good sign.
Nope. And, kiss of death. The kiss of death.
And yeah, I mean, listen, I was not a fan of Ota for quite a while. I thought he was a wrestling staller.
Isn't he your Twitter cover picture?
Yes, he is doing the moonsault in that tag team grappling match. But he's still he's starting to win me over slowly if he continues fighting his way. Is he still with Brave?
No,
I think he's
at Palestra Casio with Ogikubo.
Is I thought that was Power Extra Chiba.
Yeah, it's the same.
Oh, it is okay because there's 1,000 like Power Extras, and I don't know.
Casio is like a station in Chiba. Yeah, he's up there with. He's there with Ogikubo, Kana Sakura, and Karen.
And it says that running away from the opponent lady generated a lot of memes on social media. Yeah, well, there was one where someone like made her like Sonic, and she's like doing like the running the ring, collecting the rings as she. There was a lot of funny stuff.
That might be the most viral women's MMA moment since Alima McFarlane beat that soccer mom, who was like the last minute replacement.
Well, I don't know. I still think that Shevchenko versus Kochera, whatever the fuck her name is, was still viral because of Yamazaki going. I wanted her to be a warrior.
Or I would go about this all night thinking about ridiculous women's MMA moments.
Also, like
I do love the Ren Nakai front kick during the UFC Japan show.
Where front kick from
Misha Tate was at least 5 meters away from her.
But so Babu Jack says back to Pancras for Kenta. I wouldn't bring him back. What do you think? He's kind of become like a Rizin regular, and he's always. I'll give him credit. At least in his past fights, he's kind of always. He's dumbfoundedly like been exciting.
He's lucky. I think he's got the X factor, which is luck.
Yeah,
he's got knockout power. He knocked out Matoya, so he can't be all bad.
Yeah,
and he's a fun guy. But I say, I'm not going to say don't bring him back to Rising, but I say let him go to Pancrase, have a couple fun fights, then bring him back up to Rising. Kind of let him do what Knee's doing right now.
Do you think that he's like? Well, first of all, Knee is on a winning streak, so
Knee's a stud. Yeah, love Knee.
Both a stud outside and inside.
Very true.
The fight world. Well, I mean, do you think that Takizawa could be the quintessential gatekeeper for 135?
Does Rising even need gatekeepers, though? Their divisions aren't that deep. I think he needs to go to Pancrase, win a couple fights, then come back up, or fight on like a landmark show.
Now, Ota called out Kai after the match.
I want to see Ota fight Juan Archuleta.
Is that the first person who Juan should fight next? Not Kai?
if Kai isn't ready, if Kai, for some reason Kai is injured
Kai isn't.
again,
You mean if Kai isn't injured? You mean?
yeah, if Kai isn't injured, I would book Juan against Ota, just because it'd be interesting to see their wrestling styles clash.
I think. Well, here's the thing. I think now Ota is no longer just this guy who's going to wrestle. I think he's now actually a little bit more comfortable.
They rushed him. They rushed him too quickly. They put him against guys he shouldn't have been fighting.
That's the story of every Japanese MMA debut almost.
Unlike some certain fighters whose name rhymes with Ersan Yamamoto, he seems to have risen above that and is doing very well. I think he's a very exciting prospect.
As long as Ersan doesn't get a hot girlfriend that potentially will hold him down, I think Ota will be on the right path.
So as long as he stays away from Ayaka Miura, he should be fine.
Yes. Babu Jack says Ota versus Solchu Kim.
I would love that.
Right? Yeah,
I would love that, but I think he might be busy in Road FC because he has that fight with Moon coming up.
Yeah.
I love Kim. I think Kim is great. And Japanese, say what you will, Japanese MMA has always had an excellent relationship with Korean MMA. Mm-hmm. And I just love it when every promotion has like a couple of go-to Korean fighters, like the Ham Sohis, Stun Kun Kims, Korean Zombie. Those kind of guys got started in Japan. And I always love it when they have a bunch of good Korean fighters over here. For some reason, Korea doesn't have that many like dominant MMA gyms, but they produce a ton of talent. It's kind of this weird thing that happens because they also don't have that many promotions, but they produce Korean MMA fighters do better in the UFC than Japanese fighters. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. The top gyms in Korea, I think, was it
Mad?
ATT, Mad, and that's where what's her name?
Well, Mad is where Ham Sohee,
Ham Sohee,
yeah. And Stun Gun and Superboy and Wonder Boy.
Yeah. There's also what's the one that Korean Zombie? He was
it's
Korean
called Zombie MMA. I think it's just called Zombie MMA.
That's good. That's actually I like that. That's a cool MMA gym name. But the gym I think was that ATT ATT Busan? Oh, Busan Top Team. That's what it was. Busan Top Team. So I mean, yeah, it's just funny how Korean fighters have been generally successful in MMA internationally, yet Japan. Well, we'll see how Taira, Saruya, and Nakamura do. Maybe they'll be the trendsetters. They'll be the ones who break out. Where do you think Rizin chooses for its next? This one, sorry, by the way, chooses for its major city debut outside of Japan. I mean this as no disrespect. I don't know Azerbaijani as a country before these recent Rizin cards. So I think we talked about before. You said we said Hawaii. Probably that's the one they definitely.
I don't believe that when it happens. I think first off, I think a lot of them going to Hawaii depended on Bellator helping a lot. And if Bellator doesn't exist, that option might go down the toilet.
Would it? So you think they want to just try on their own?
I think they might try on their own, but I think they were going to, because Hawaii is one of the best places where Bellator has some of the biggest shows. I think they were going to depend on using a lot of Bellator fighters for that show. And I think that they're going to help them a lot.
Well, also, what do you think about that?
Hawaii's got to be an expensive place to do an event, right?
I mean, they paid Bellator to come there. Is it not possible that they see like, oh,
they did get a lot of support. A lot of guys came out to the press conference from the local community. They had the guy that claims to have won their governor race show up. So
Ensign in a way could probably also help. Maybe in a way could help as well. Probably
no, they could do it. They also, but I just think the Bellator was going to help them a lot. They could still do it. But I mean, if anything, if they wanted to do it in Hawaii, why wouldn't they go to Hawaii to present their rule meetings? It shows to me that they're trying to follow one championship and are maybe looking to do Colorado instead.
I would rather they do Hawaii. I think it's a little bit too presumptuous to do Colorado or the mainland United States at this point. Yeah, that's just my thoughts.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they go somewhere besides the United States.
What do you think?
Well, if they're going to the United States, I think it just depends on if they have a fighter that's doing well. It's where they can sell tickets, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, does Guam have a venue they could use? I could see them trying to go to Guam, which is
Oh,
part of the
that's a
U.S.
good.
technically.
Oh, that's an
But
interesting. Anybody familiar with Guam
it's part of the
geography?
U.S. I just
If
don't know if they have a
anyone,
venue though. I mean, because
if
they have Miyu, they have Kyle, they have Rocky.
we have a bunch of comments talking about that. Ichi says, what are some of the issues Japanese promoters face when they try to enter the US market, physically hold events there? I mean, I don't know. What would you say, CJ, is some of the issues Japanese promoters face? I mean, only Pride's really tried. Did K1 ever try or have a
I don't know if
event
they
in the
did.
US?
I know Pride did, and didn't they have to like open an office up in the U.S. and do all sorts
Yeah,
of
Las
stuff?
Vegas. Yeah, Las Vegas they had.
So I think there's just a lot of tape you have to cut, a lot of cross, and I would, I mean, probably just finding a suitable venue that's available will be difficult. They're probably booked pretty far in
Well,
advance.
here's the other thing as well, and this is a problem with a lot. This is also a problem with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So Rizin and New Japan Pro Wrestling, when they want to reap the benefits of the U.S. attention, but they don't want to spend the finances to make it look like it. They do on the cheap, which is not how you can really do.
Oh,
If you're
because
coming to,
I have a question. I mean, keep going. I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say because okay, so when New Japan does shows here in the United States, they do them at the the ECW arena,
Yes.
CJ.
Mhm.
Okay, this is a company that runs the Tokyo Dome in Japan. 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 people go there. And then when they come to the United States, they run ECW arena. It's kind it's such a contrast and it's so like it looks low rent. And
Well, that's what I
they
was going to say is I don't know about that stuff, but because I do a lot of women's MMA coverage, Stardom is kind of like in my peripheral just because there's some crossover.
mhm.
And it seems like when Stardom goes abroad too, the shows look very small. Probably because this market's pretty niche for Japanese women's wrestling outside of Japan. But I mean, it doesn't look like it's the same scale as it is in Japan. And I would say
Yeah.
that Stardom probably has a much bigger following internationally than Rising does.
Mhm.
So in
You're
coming to the US, it's going to be difficult for Hawaii is smart because Hawaii has a really strong Japanese connection. It's close enough to Japan that people will travel from Japan to go to the show.
yeah.
There's a lot of Japanese people that live of Japanese people of Japanese nationality or ethnicity that live in Hawaii. And so you're going to be able to fill that arena with people interested in that show. If you go to Denver, it's going to be much harder for them to fill that show without spending a ton of money to market it.
Yeah. I can't believe that one legitimately sold out that arena. It's impossible. I just don't
Well, I
see how.
mean, I think they probably just gave away a ton of tickets or something.
Mhm. Listen.
But
I get it's possible. I definitely don't believe they sold some tickets, but I don't believe they legitimately sold out
yeah,
on their own. There's no way this
some cooking the
and
books going on.
yeah, and Ryzen, which uses even less international talent than one, and they're
Wait,
gonna if you're gonna do your show in Denver, Colorado.
what's that movie that keeps getting sold out, but people walk in the movie theater and no one's
Oh,
actually watching the movie?
Sound of
Yeah,
Freedom.
that's what one championship shows are like. Sold out. We have 20 people in the venue.
Daniel Duzebecki says K1 had a regular US Las Vegas events back in days. That's what I thought. I knew
Makes
they had.
sense.
WMMAC now says they have to prep fighters for post fight drug tests when it comes to hurdles. That's true.
Hey, Yachi, don't stop talking about Yachi like that.
Yeah. Code Mayday also says Pancreas tried to do a US show when HD Net was a thing. I don't remember that. Do you know anything about that?
That seems vaguely familiar. I'm also having weird memories of Deep trying to do a Macau show. I feel like I'm remembering the promotions all tried to go abroad at one point in time.
Babu Jack says, see if Akira Maeda still has those Lithuania connections. Okay. Well, I think isn't he? Who's he working with now? He's not working with K1. So
He's in
I think he might
Pancrase.
be.
Akira Maeda's been helping out at Pancrase.
Was it? Then they interview him for K1 though, for the new K1. I thought they did.
Really?
I thought
Because
he
he's
was on
always at
that.
those Pancrase shows with Rio. Like Rio's his boy.
Um, WMAC now says he can believe the PNE sold that PNE sold it out. I know I met a lot of people travel for it and it only held 5,000 people. I still not it's hard because it's the lack of I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that really one like sold that arena out.
To
Like
support WMAC now, when I looked at the event and saw how the prices for the event, I would have gone to that event. But I know I'm a crazy
yeah,
person, but it was very affordable for the level of
it's
MMA that's
just
on it.
whenever because they never show the audience. Whenever one never shows the audience, and it's like that makes you just not believe that there's people in there. I
Yeah, well,
just
their production kind of sucks at times too.
because you want to show the audience, you want right.
Yeah.
That's not like that's the point of yeah whatever. Was
Someone
it
said South Korea. South
yeah
Korea could be good, but part of me makes me think that maybe they'd be stepping on like Road FC or some other people's toes.
mhm.
Rising does have like the problem that they borrow fighters from a lot of organizations, so they kind of have to play nice with a bunch of promotions. By why they're going to Azerbaijan.
I think also I think the problem with Korea is that other than Road FC, and the Black Combat now, UFC rarely even runs in Korea. When's the
Wait,
last time?
I'm gonna tell you this. The
Yeah.
first UFC Korea show was one of the best MMA events of all time.
Okay.
Wasn't that also the fight where the guy got arrested for fight fixing? It had everything.
Oh,
That event had
maybe.
everything. That was awesome. So he
Maybe.
got fight of the night. What a great show.
Mm-hmm.
Going to
Daniel Diaz-
Thailand would be hilarious if they killed one championship.
Hey, listen, maybe Coda could help. Maybe Coda Miura can help. With
No,
that.
the real troll of one championship would be go to Singapore.
Oh, that's true. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Trying to think of what fighters they have from other countries that are doing well.
Oh, Rizin or
Yeah,
Korea?
for like
Oh,
thinking of like international show options. Like who's the guy that could feature on a show? Because Azerbaijan's kind of perfect because they have two pretty good Azerbaijani fighters.
yeah. That's the thing is that they don't have as many fighters from like random countries like they used to. So it's very hard to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard to pinpoint
If you're
that.
gonna do the US, I kind of think it either has to be Vegas or Hawaii.
Yeah. I mean, well, don't forget they signed all those. Remember the tryouts they had for Hawaii?
Yeah.
They had those tryouts, and only one's been used so far, Zach Zane, and now he's in slap fights.
Yeah.
So
at the current rate, those fighters are gonna die of old age before they ever go to Hawaii.
exactly, yeah. So the Hawaii thing makes sense, and as
Maybe
Azerbaijan.
maybe if Sakakibara goes back to Vegas and gives Dana White another baseball cap, UFC will let him use the NX to do a show.
We'll talk about the middleweight fights. Daichi Abe, Fat Ninja, Igor Tanabe, heel hook finish by Tanabe. What do you think of this rare unicorn fight?
I think we talked about it in the preview. It's what I expected. Tanabe can't strike, and but he's a much better grappler, so he won with his grappling.
But he got tagged quite a few times though. If Abe was
Abe's a good puncher too. So
yeah. Actually, Kobe Day. Last comment we'll say about the whole international thing. Well, he says if you're going down the international path, Brazil, Pitbull versus Bonsai.
I was thinking of Brazil, but it's like those fighters might not make it out alive.
That's actually a good point as well.
Yes.
I did suggest that there should be a Rizin card where they have like 5 fighters from Pitbull take on 5 fighters from Bonsai.
Wasn't Shogun like carjacked by a guy with a machine gun or something crazy?
Oh, there's all that stuff. Remember the Olympics, when they had them in Rio? You had like not fires, but athletes being like robbed right outside their hotel and all that stuff. Yeah, it's great. It's a lawless.
The more funny story about the Brazil Olympics was the Japanese gymnast who was so addicted to Pokemon Go he couldn't stop playing, and he racked up like a $40,000 roaming bill on his cell phone.
I mean, so yeah, with this fight, I mean, do you think Rizin's going to expand 185 or nope?
No, they're just going to do what they keep doing and scraping together the middleweight fights that they can. I thought the finish was kind of cool because I don't know why Abe also looked like he was going for a heel hook. but it seemed like a poor decision against Tanabe.
It was.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I also couldn't see the. It took me like several replays to actually see the finish.
Well, that's how slick of a grappler Tanabe is. Is that he can do shit. He can do shit like that. He's probably the best upper weight jiu-jitsu guy in Japan that I can think of like ADCC level.
Mhm.
So
Wasn't Shrek an ADCC champion?
I think he competed at 80. I think he tried out for trials. I don't know if he actually made it.
Okay.
If I'm correct. Takero Man 91 has a question. Thoughts on the sentiment that Azakura is not really a fighter anymore. He's just a YouTuber.
Yeah, it's true. I don't want to use. This is a terrible example because I dislike the person, but it seems a lot like Brendan Schaub when he was getting a bunch of YouTube success and T-shirts and was like clearly not that interested in fighting anymore, but he kept doing it. Mikadu seems to be a less extreme version of that. But yeah, he's clearly known for his YouTube. His fan base, there is a large number of them that don't even know about his fighting or like him for that. They just care about his YouTube. He is breaking down. So yeah, I agree with the sentiment. I mean, he's still a fighter, but I don't think he's a full-time fighter.
Kobe says the smile that CJ had on his face after saying Shrek was ADCC champion. I mean, so the thing is, Tanabe also said that it wants to go down to the welterweights. Good luck. I don't know how he can. But
cut off luck. A limb. Cut off a limb.
Shrink the size of his head. You were in the press room. He's got a huge head.
Oh yeah.
What about Abe though? Former deep welterweight champion, former UFC fighter.
They'll keep him around just because they don't have a lot of middleweights, and he's got the international exposure to make him interesting.
Did Marco Souza retire or not? Because I'm confused. If he did or didn't, because
is he famous enough of a fighter to be like technically retired?
I guess not. Because I was like, why not do Souza versus Tanabe? That would be an interesting fight, I think.
Yeah, I've confirmed Shrek competed in ADCC twice, but lost in the quarters.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah.
But I mean, come on, lost to Dean Lister. What are we supposed to do?
Oh yeah.
The only guy at ADCC that's doing more steroids than Shrek.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. They're both 100% natural. I'm joking.
Asahi.
No, but I mean, Tanabe was kind of funny. The post-fight interview, he said it in English, Russian, and Brazilian.
Oh, I didn't know he speak Russian. I didn't watch any of the post-fight stuff.
I feel like he spoke. I think he did the post-fight press conference in English and Portuguese, not Russian. He did it in English and Portuguese, which is kind of fun. But yeah, he's clearly a very talented grappler. And you know me, I love specialists. I love fighters like Damian Maia or Imanari. And when you have this high level of a grappler, I want to see him in MMA. The problem is there's just no one at that weight class. Like, I mean, if he drops down to, what are they going to do? Put him against Keitaro? But Keitaro's got to be above his level at this point.
Keitaro, Kita Nakamura. I'm sorry. Kichi. Strasher Kichi. I don't know who else.
I feel like I'm so indifferent and I don't care. I feel like the Souza fight is the most fun.
It's interesting. It's interesting, I think. But like, I'm so indifferent, and I really don't care. That's just like that's he's gotta go to like Pancras or something. Pancras would at least have obviously not well qualified fighters, but they'll at least be able to find some people.
Well, they fly people in for him, yeah.
And I mean, remember Daichi did that one fight at lightweight? Was it lightweight against Akira? I think it was at lightweight, wasn't it?
Possible. I can't remember.
Not that, it was a terrible fight from what I remember. Anyway, last fight, opening fight. I think the best fight that you could have had to cleanse the dog shit that was
this is what they needed. This is what
It
they
was
needed after
the
that Bellator
perfect.
shit.
My God, like this was the best. This was. I heard the crowd, and
Mhm.
and even though the sound editing on Fight is awful, no, it was what the crowd absolutely needed. You could tell that they were excited. Good thing that was also Hiroya as
We said
well.
it.
Who,
We said it in the preview show. There's a reason this was the opening fight going into the event. I
yeah,
mean, these guys were going to bring it. They're both brawlers. It's not going to be pretty, but you need those types of fights on cards to get the crowds going. And Hiroya performed way better than I thought he was going to. And this was a great fight. I loved it. The crowd loved it. It was what everybody needed.
no, I watched this fight 49 times. Just kidding, no idea. I watched it. I rewatched it.
Wait, who is that? Is that a Luke Thomas impression?
Yes.
Or is that
What was it? I think it was
Robin Black?
Max. I think it was Max. No, that was Luke Thomas said that I think it was Max Holloway versus Volkanovski 2 because it was a split decision and people were like, oh, Max could have won then, and he said something like he watched it 49 times, which is obviously bullshit because he definitely did not.
It's also like
But,
something a crazy person would do.
yeah. But no, I watched this fight again the next day. And I initially thought Ito won, but upon rewatching, I was like, no, I could see why they gave it to no, I'm sorry, why I originally thought Hiroya won it, but I gave it to Ito after I rewatched it based on damage and striking. Clearly, Hiroya controlled a lot of it, and he went through a lot of. He attempted a lot of submissions, but in terms of closing the finishing and striking, Ito edged out. That doesn't, but
I agree with you 100%. Because I think there's also some bias that happened because
I think my mind was also clouded by
because he performed better than we expected.
Yeah,
it kind of made us think that he was winning.
I also think because I just watched Bellator and they did the unified rules with that, my mind was still kind of clicked into like unified rule judging. So that's why I thought
there was one combo especially where Ito really tagged Hiroya with a good combo and looked like he did some damage.
Yes.
And that combo alone to me was like, that might have been damage points.
But also he had two different guillotine attempts on Hiroya. The last one near the end was probably definitely one that was a could have been finished with a higher level grappler than Ito is. Also, I think also what the lead up to this fight, they kind of were like shit talking each other. It was kind of I think it made it compelling as well. Is that because it's there wasn't bad blood, but they were definitely shit talking more than regular Japanese fighters do for the most part. Hiroya also has a huge fan base.
He does. If you go to the shows where he fights on Deep, he has a ton of female fans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after he fights on a Deep show, they all get up and leave. Like they're there for him and him alone.
Do you think is he possibly the best fighter to come out of like Mikuru's camp?
Off the top of my head, yeah, he's performed the best.
Also, maybe he did well because he didn't have Mikuru actually coaching. By the way, did you like when they were like cutting to Mikuru in the back? He was like on his phone, not even paying attention to during the fights.
Well, maybe it was a good thing he wasn't cornering him. He's like, "Go for the flying knee. You're doing too much offense."
I was impressed. Especially because Ito came off that loss against Ursan, and I thought that Ursan, I thought he was going to run through Ursan, and then
I know, but I mean, the problem with Ursan is we joke about it, but we joke about him at times, but you cannot deny that he's a physical freak.
Yeah.
And he has such high wrestling pedigree that it's kind of like sea-level Kane. If motivated, having trained Ursan shows up, you're going to have a real problem with his wrestling.
So, I mean, so what do you think about these two? Do you think we'll see Hiroya back?
Oh, absolutely. Hiroya, they both have big fan bases. I mean, they kind of look the same. They attract the same kind of audience. They both have that bad boy image. makes sense. One's from Breaking Down, one's from Outsider. They've kind of got similar backgrounds. They're both very popular. They bring the kind of Mikuru fan base that has proved to be very important to Rising success. So these guys are absolutely going to be back. I mean, they both are very popular in Deep. So Deep will probably want to keep them for a couple of Deep shows as well.
I can attest to Hiroyo's popularity because I saw him take on Tomohiro Adadanya at one of the Deep Impact shows at Kurikan, and it wasn't the main event. I think it was maybe co-main event or right before the co-main event, but yeah, no, it was definitely not the co-main event. But yes, he had a lot of fans, Hiroya, and when when the fight ended, I just saw a bunch of people get up and leave.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're both very popular, and they do. Come on, if you fight like that, they're going to bring you back.
You and Shu also had an interesting discussion about the kind of like in terms of like the fan base of MMA fights, and I think you kind of talked about it as well in the Discord about like who like what was it? You said I remember you said that on Shu's podcast you said that after watching Bellator they may not be an MMA fan, they may just be a Rizin fan.
Well, that's what my wife's friends and my wife herself.
Yeah.
After watching the Bellator portion, said maybe we're not MMA fans, maybe we're Rising fans.
I think.
Well, a lot of the people I watch Rising with are my wife and her friends, so it's a bunch of women. And what they like about Rising is they do the Rising confession videos, they do the VTRs, so you know all the fighters' backstories. You have a guy that you're rooting for. You know, like what the stakes are in each fight. And for the Bellator fight, Bellator did nothing to market to the Japanese audience. They don't know who these people are. They don't
market to us. They don't market to us even.
They're like, this guy might be a tough foreigner. We have no idea who these people are. And as a result, the fights have like no consequences to them.
Yeah.
And so there's like nothing important about the fight, which to them is a huge portion of why they enjoy the fight.
I think I think also the difference between the Pride era and now is that so Pride was like they promoted based on the freak show foreigner. That was how
they had to, because I mean the highest rated MMA, the highest rated fight of all time is Bob Sapp versus Akebono.
Yeah, but I think now is they want someone who they can put on. Well, I guess when they had the Fuji TV deal, put on, talk shows, variety shows, game shows, whatever. Someone who could go on game shows and all that stuff and promote that way. That's what they're trying to find out. Well, I guess adjacently as well, Japanese YouTube stars or whatever, who make it big on YouTube or whatever. But I think that's the big difference now is that particularly Rizin wants a Japanese face for their company, not a Bob Sapp type,
even Pride depended on the freak fights were good, but they still depended on a Japanese face. They had to have that Sakuraba, they had to have Takada at the first show. They need a Japanese face to sell this stuff, and generally speaking, to a Japanese audience.
Yeah, I think the market has changed where now it's now they because Bob Sapp he was promoted like insanely in Japan, like pachinko machines.
He was huge. He was a huge star.
Well,
but it'd be so easy because Bellator has fighters that have relationships with Rising fighters, and it's so easy for these. Juan Harcoleta just stayed after his fight for a couple weeks, and he's got Japanese fans now. AJ McKee just like gave them some attention, and now there's a bunch of Japanese people saying like, "Oh, get better soon. We hope you're here soon. We want to see you fight again." Like, it doesn't take a lot, but just promote to them, market to them, give them something to root for. They don't react well to just fights where they don't know what's going on. Like one that would have made sense to me was Lima Lei McFarlane used to train with both Murata Kaneko and Asakura Kana. So she has that could be a whole VTR right there about that relationship, because she actually came to a Rising show, and when Murata did her walkout, everyone was wearing Sakuraba masks. Ilima was one of those people in the soccer mask. I think it was when Murata fought Rin Nakai. I mean, that could be that's the type of backstory stuff that I think Japanese fans like to see in a Rising Confession or a VTR. And just anything like Bellator needs like any type of marketing, any type of promotion would make them care.
We got a bunch of comments in chat. Let's get to them before we end the show. Ichi, we talked about before. When do you think Mikuru versus Ren should happen? They need to hurry before Mikuru leaves MMA. I think someone suggested New Year's Eve. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
You said you want it after a win, or was that? Did you say Ren wanted that after a win? I can't remember, Charles.
I think it would be a great because now that Super Rising seems to be an annual show. I think it'd be good for next year's Super Rising.
God, that feels like I don't know. I feel like that's way too long.
Just to be honest, Ren just doesn't seem interested in it at this moment.
Is that just maybe a negotiating tactic? Is that just him being an asshole?
That's true.
What is it? Babu Jack says Hiroya can stick with Mikuru and the YouTube stuff, but man, if he goes somewhere else to train boxing, there's maybe potential there. And Ichi said the trade-off between clout and good training. I don't know. Is there a fine balance between clout and good training?
Potential can only take you so far, and by that I mean steal money from a bunch of COVID relief funds in Osaka while you're running for politics. So yeah, people remember Potential was the name of the company that sponsored Trigger, and I will never let that story die. No, but yeah, he's clearly a good fighter. He could just training with Mikuru has so many financial benefits for him though, that I don't see him ever leaving. Mikuru is actually paying for his training and living expenses.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. WMMAC now says Bellator has always been crap at shoulder programming. I think part of that is Showtime limiting their budget. No, it is. No, Paramount, whatever budget they had. Listen, and I said this yesterday. The only reason why they're even on Showtime at all is because they went on during the pandemic. They went on Showtime during the pandemic when these media companies wanted content, and Showtime, they're a live sports program, so it was an easy thing to add to their thing to hopefully get people to subscribe during the pandemic and watch. But now that let's be real. I don't think they thought Bellator was going to lead to people signing in for Showtime. Oh no.
I just think they're like, we got to get content on this ASAP.
That's what I meant
with the other providers.
Yeah, no, that's why I meant to clarify. Because UFC did great during the pandemic. WWE did great during the pandemic.
Rising did great during the pandemic once they adjusted.
Exactly. Yeah. So So I don't think that Showtime thought they're gonna break into billions of dollars of Bellator, but it was just something that they could just put on and say, "Hey, this is what we have."
The problem with Bellator is that Viacom has made it clear that they're not going to put their own money into them anymore.
Yeah.
And Showtime has made it clear that they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Bellator doesn't make money, so that doesn't leave them a lot of options for their marketing or promotional budgets. But I mean, they could do something clever on social media or something.
Falling Star says, I think I feel the reason Bellator part was so lame is because they didn't do it to make a card where it was nothing but high ranked fighters. It would be more meaningful, okay. Because it didn't have highly ranked higher ranked. Well, they did. No. I think they did.
It did. Yeah. I mean, AJ McKee would have been great. I think the reason it was lame was just because the fights didn't deliver. There was an unfortunate outcome that caused one of them to be ruled a no contest. And it just seemed like the show started. It started very abruptly. I can't remember the last time I went to a show at Saitama Super Arena and there was no opening ceremony of any kind.
I think also the other thing is just it's Bellator being Bellator. Bellator doesn't brand itself really any way differently. They should have
debuted the giant fish mascot.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Again, that's all we have for today, though. But before we go, CJ, anything you're doing for Sogokaku?
I'm interviewing Karen this week because she has a fight coming from Pancrase. And I got an article on Shuto Watanabe, who's retiring this month as well. Check out my podcast with Shu Hirata that came out yesterday. Some interesting discussions there. And keep an eye out. September's got a bunch of fun shows in it. And Andrew and I'm sure will be covering all of it.
What about high kicks and arm bars? When are we getting that again? I know it's technically not your show, but it's on your channel.
That's true. I think Bobo Jack and I have been talking about it. We just need to figure out a time to sit down and do it. I think, doesn't K1 have another press conference announced?
This week, I believe.
Right,
I
yeah.
think.
Maybe we can do it after that because I can't talk about K1 without him. I'm just a little baby K1 fan. I know nothing about it.
I just hopefully it's not a press conference to announce another press conference because it seems very they did so many announcements. I don't know what else they could possibly announce. I don't know.
For our announcement, we'd like to announce that we've signed another rapist to the promotion now. If they're doing an announcement, I really hope that it's about who's going to be their international broadcasting partner, because that would show me that they're serious about their international.
I don't see who else could be besides fights. Who else could it be besides fights?
Then announce it. Then announce that. Just anything at this point would make me happy.
I hope they don't go on like the Zone or something like that.
It's clearly going to be on Abema in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
So they need to have some type of international streaming. Which Fight would be fine. People like Fight. Fight seems to have a steady stream that doesn't go out down too often.
Mm-hmm.
Just announce it. Just make it clear. Show people how to watch it.
And Ichi said the press conference is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Japan time. So
there we go.
That sounds very late for me, so I will not be tuning in live, but I'll probably see comments in the Discord. So yeah, as well. Make sure you subscribe to Discord FF, Rizin. For We Are Rizin Pod, I write stuff for MMA Sucker, including the most recent death of Sean Ryu from Shuto as well. Rizin giveaway. I have here a extra large t-shirt from Rizin. Again, the way to enter and potentially win this t-shirt is make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to We Are Rizin Pod, and then message me your favorite fight from Rizin this year, and just take a screenshot or whatever of showing that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. And let's say I'll probably do this. I'll have the winner announced for the next big Rizin show when we preview that. So
when are those Rising flip-flops going up for
I don't know if I want to give those up. I have not won them, but I will see. We'll see how many people enter this contest, and maybe how much I can leech off getting subscribers and followers. But yes, extra large t-shirts, Japanese, so keep that in mind. It may not fit all of you, but yeah, Rizin giveaway. Please enter the contest. You could be anywhere in the world. I will cover shipping. But yeah, that's all talk for Super Rizin 2. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you all in the next one.